Guys, we have a name. We've decided. We're going with Travelers Proc. Me and Mike both like the name a lot. Aror and Mike had a podcast. Seemed good, but we are going with Travelers Proc. And welcome to the 5th episode of Travelers Proc.
That's crazy. It's already been over a month. Yeah, we just felt like Travelers Proc long term was a little bit less goofy for like just continuity or branding or like having a logo, that type of stuff. So we'll continue to update that and work on it. But yeah, thank you guys all for the name suggestions. Again, not to beat a dead horse, but other than the frontliners suggestions, everything else was helpful.
Yeah, the Frontliners was a no-go. I did not like that name at all.
Yeah.
But I'm really happy we went with it. When me and Mike decided, we just were like, Kabam was the one who suggested it for us. And we're like, that has a cool meaning behind it. The name's really good as well because we both love Traveler shoes.
I feel like it's a little catchy as well, which is nice.
Yeah.
It's easy to say.
And it has something to do with Smite too, which is like really nice. So I like it a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think, is that all on the name? Was there something else we were going to talk about?
Nah, let's just get into it.
Yeah, let's just rip it. Okay. Today's episode will be something that both of us as well as our guest are familiar with, which is kind of just, I guess, evolving, adapting, changing over the course of your career, whether it be different metas, teammates, play styles, literally moving locations, yeah, all that type of stuff. So our guest today is reigning world champion and 4 times world finalist. How many other accolades are there? Multiple?
9 times world's appearances.
Yeah, like only player to be at every Worlds, right? Won tons of splits, tons of other tournaments.
Second place in deaths.
Most all-time wins in the SPL, all that type of stuff. Yeah, still can't beat Aror on deaths. But our guest today is CaptainTwig, so we're really happy to have Twiggy here to talk with us. And then, yeah, we're going to awkwardly like have him come in.
Yeah.
Hi, Ben. How are you?
Hello. I guess I'm talking to the mic.
Yeah.
Oh,
put the headset on too.
yeah.
You'd hear us better probably.
Yeah, make sure we aren't blasting your ears. Your volume good?
It's okay. I can turn it down a bit, but for now it's fine.
Does that sound better?
A little bit down.
Yeah. How about now?
Perfect.
Nice.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry guys, we couldn't audio troubleshoot. We all just got here after scrims. Bit of a rush, but yeah.
So how's it going?
I was waiting for you. I thought you wanted to talk.
It's great.
Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
I was when I heard it was a thing, I was hoping that I'd get an invite.
Of course.
I'm one of those guys that I unashamedly like to talk about Smite.
It's so fun.
And everything around. I guess what all 3 of us have been through for like 9-10 years more.
10 plus, I feel like, for all of us. Yeah.
That's crazy.
And it's like I just feel like, we've been on so many different teams. I feel like I didn't even know that you guys were going to talk about the topic that you just ran down about like changing and adapting over the years. And I feel like it's kind of the perfect week for me to be here, kind of.
Yeah, I think I mentioned it to you briefly before our set, like the first week of the SPL or whenever we played.
Yeah.
And I asked him yesterday to do the episode. I completely forgot to tell him the topic.
Yeah, thanks for coming on so short notice. I appreciate it.
It was so fun because we did the prep yesterday, and it was probably the quickest prep we've ever done because it's like all 3 of us, I feel like, just have so much experience with it.
Yeah, Mike really was excited for this episode. I feel like it makes perfect sense. Like he said it, I think, when we were going through guests, because we have like, I don't know, we have like so many people we want to have on, and then like you were one of the top ones, and Mike's like, this is just gonna be the best episode when we get him on, so
yeah,
it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, now that there's a lot of pressure, we can all just relax.
I was gonna say I gotta put on a show, huh?
Oh yeah. So yeah, I guess getting the easy stuff out of the way first. I think something before kind of the career evolution, I guess it's partly tied to it. From my experience when we were teammates, and I think you had this a lot even before the leagues kind of merged and you were in Europe. Mm-hmm. You've always been a player that has had a lot of success, both regular season and postseason.
Yeah.
And you've always had this stigma around you where I think the public perception has never been as respectful as maybe like your peer opinions, like within the pro league. And
I was about to say, with like, obviously, I don't think anyone's so self-aware that they know how all the other pros perceive them.
Mm-hmm.
So
I just think it really got highlighted when you were on a team, I think, with myself and Alec, because we just had like maybe smaller like Twitch communities or something like that, like different individual fan bases, where we would literally stream, and if we won a set, it would be like, oh my god, you guys carried so hard, nice job. And then we lose, it's like, kick Twig, he did nothing, he feeds, dashes in on Raijin, you know, all this stuff. And I was kind of wondering, of course, now, given that you finally won Worlds, do you feel like that has, or just in the most recent years, do you think it's changed the level of respect that you've been given, or the perception? Is there any sort of like weight off your shoulders with that type of stuff?
I guess to some extent, I think every player has to have a certain level of self-confidence that I was never lacking. So I didn't mind. I think even now I'd consider myself more dominant regular season than at tournaments, even like now. And even if I was technically to win like 2 or 3 more tournaments straight, like I've been really, really lucky with teams that have just been on regular season, like since the move to America, and even a little bit before that. Obey had like a couple rough splits, but I guess it's nice. It is a weight off the shoulders, but I'm one of those people that I think like advice I heard early on was like not to care about what other people think, and I think in this line of job, especially with you guys too, I feel like you understand it better than most, that sometimes you're just going to look terrible in a game.
Oh yeah.
And that's just part of competition, especially for I think all 3 of our play styles right now.
I think even our roles,
especially
as well.
Like especially if you play for like 10 years,
yeah,
you're gonna have a bad game. Like there's no way around it. Even if you're a perfect player, like even the best player has a bad game.
Yeah. And to extend on that, I'd say you're gonna have like a bad week, or you're gonna have a bad
even
month.
a couple weeks or
Split.
something. Yeah,
or just a bad split. Yeah, and
Yeah.
you slumping might be with your team also slumping, or your team doing fine at the time, and then you just look like the worst player on your team sometimes. Or that's just the role you play for your team. And I feel like you just can't care that much what people think. If you've been doing it long enough, you just have to have like a thick skin.
Yeah, I'd like what you said at the beginning with self-confidence. I feel like I've always seen that like in you as a player, because you'll get in there regardless if it's good or bad for your team. Like you're down to get dirty, and like I feel like that's a really important thing to have.
That's such a funny phrase
I am down.
On your team, because like you see teams that don't have someone like that, and it's hard for something to get going like in the game sometimes,
especially if they get behind, like nobody makes a play to get back in it, like that type of thing.
Like some teams, like from my experience, like I was the only one down to do that, and then that's not good, because then you're just in there yourself. But if you have like 1 or 2 people on the team like that can get everybody rolling, I think it's like a really good thing to have in your team. And the crazy thing about you, like that's super impressive, is that you've done it in 2 different roles, and you were super consistent as well, like at getting victories and wins. Like playing mid and jungle and able to contribute the same way in both the roles is really, really like impressive. I feel like.
Well, I think some of that's tied down to me being I bring a lot of the same things to a team. I think kind of whatever role I'm in, especially if it's in one of the core 3 roles, I'd say. I speak my mind a lot, you know, with just how I think about the game with my teams, and I feel like that definitely it's not like tied to necessarily my performance on game day every time, but I mean, I'm still gonna like kind of be consistently doing what I do every game, like whether it's a good look or a bad look, kind of. And I've been blessed with some teammates though, for sure, over the years.
Same.
Yeah,
definitely
wouldn't
even
sure.
be close to the accolades I had without, like, I could name something like 15 different teammates I've had over the years that have just helped me get like to the accolades I have now.
I think the only other, I guess, sort of recent-ish thing I have for you is we've talked about this a little bit over each of the past episodes, which is just kind of, and we can get more into it when it comes to like scrims or team atmosphere, that type of stuff, but just generally the shift in career from moving to the US for Smite from the merger, and of course like going through COVID, having it be harder to see your family and all that type of stuff. I know that I was lucky enough to be at your wedding and like share that with you, and like seeing your family actually be able to be there, because I know it was hard to see them, and then of course seeing them at Worlds as well. I just was kind of curious like what that has kind of meant to you, and just how you view the past few years. Has it increased your maybe professionalism, how seriously you take it, or just the way you look at your career in general?
I think it's almost like my answer in your question, but I feel like there was definitely just like a step up from, hey, this is like an amazing dream passion before the America move, to like this is more of a career job. I still love it, whatever. But it's definitely just like my life, and it's like a step up on. I mean, scrims are still scrims, and I still think there's some level like ways to go with professionalism, but like it was definitely a huge step up. And I mean, that first year on Rival, I think for me was like before getting married, because getting married, everything, you move out from like living with your teammates. I'm glad I had that like couple years with like teammates in a team house, because I felt like that was such a like living with teammates, and that being your job and your career, and friendships mattering, your relationships mattering amongst your teams. I feel like just adds a massive step up, even if it doesn't exactly correlate to what happens on game day. It like does over a long period of time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely think there was a big step up, and I mean I'll never be more grateful for the move that was like such a risk that Hi-Rez made. I think Cooper, shout out to him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so me and Mike were actually curious, like what it's like being in a team house, living with your team, versus like now you're not in a team house, you're living with your wife, right?
Yep, Zoe.
So what's that like the differences, and like what are some of the things that you tried to take over from like being in a team house and like translating it to your team while not being with like living with them and stuff like that?
That's a tough one. I think the first thing that I tried to make really clear, especially because I think that was the first year with the Kings, was the first year I kind of moved out from living with teammates and to my wife, was that, well, who would be my wife, but was that I tried to make sure that they knew that I was still like 100%, married to the game as well.
That's hard, bro.
Yeah, and it's like, well, I was just as passionate, and nothing would change, because I remember like a Hazer video, and I know he
loves the Hazer.
His word is Haver.
Dude,
right?
he's become like Stephen A. Smith of Smite.
Which is like, I love it, because he's just like a S-tier content creator, because he'll just say things. He doesn't really care about like what people or what implications he has to the players, whether they're salty about it or whatever. But I remember him saying, "Oh, that there could be like some drama, because Ben's not with the team. They might kick him." And I was thinking, "Whoa, we've been together like 2 weeks as a team," and they were like, "Oh, if scrims go bad, he's just not going to be with them." And I was thinking, I never really thought about it like that, but I don't think that's really been a problem. I mean, we did have a scrim room for a bit, but that went in the bin.
Why did that go in the bin? Is there anything you're allowed to say?
It's like, let's unpack that.
I'm just curious. If you can't say it, it's fine.
I mean, no, it went in the bin because we didn't feel like it was actually doing anything. And
Gotcha.
I mean, there was just... there is a lot to unpack there, and I don't think I should go too far into
That's
it.
completely
But
fine,
yeah, it was... I would drive there, and I'm only 5 minutes away from their house. So, I mean, that is the other thing, is that I don't fully live, like if I live 30 minutes away, it'd be different, but we can still go out to eat. We can still go out to get a drink. We can still like go play pickleball, fastest growing sport in America, by the way.
Shout outs to pickleball.
But like, so we can still spend a lot of time. And I think that's the most important thing, that teammates just like each other. And even if scrims are painful, that you can come out after a scrim. Maybe you're still like mad for like an hour, or like thinking things through for an hour after. You can still like come together and like enjoy each other's like company and enjoy each other as people, as teammates. Because I feel like if there's one thing the Kings had, and that might be one recipe for success for us, is that we were close as people. And I think that didn't go away even when I moved out.
Yeah, I think the rival year was really the year that highlighted that for me the most, because I knew it was something that we had all talked about before actually making the move, like as a whole. But once I was there, I mean, I still consider that probably my most fun year of Smite, like outside of game.
Yeah, I kind of get exactly what you're saying.
Just like it's just the random like small things, like going to the gym together or going out to eat or just like sitting around watching a movie and talking about absolutely nothing. Just things completely outside of the game. It kind of gets memed, like the whole like Friends League thing, but it genuinely does build synergy. And I think it also, the human element in things, I know was something that was really big for me because I had previously played with people who were so young, and it's not like they were just like, when I say they're like immature idiots, I don't mean they're like literally idiot humans, but they're just young, right? Like there's just a barrier in like how you connect like socially, and I think it just builds a level of like trust and understanding. Like if you're in a scrim room, for example, I think people are much less likely to like rage or be super upset because I feel like there's just more of like a human like element there, I guess.
For sure.
Yeah, I agree with all that.
So I guess that's most of the recent stuff, and you know, kind of this is open-ended in general if there's something that pops up into your mind, but just the idea of evolving and changing over your career, I guess I can give my perspective that something that I was really excited to do with this episode is I think it's something that probably both of our roles, being support and jungle, probably are taxed with that maybe more than any other role. Like I would say hunter, maybe you have like, different objective timing, like rotating to pyro might be a little bit differently, but in terms of like how you really play the role, it doesn't change too much. But I feel like for us, it could be not only different maps or metas or patches, but like literally what role is OP. Like if solo lane is OP, it'll change completely like your early game pathing and that type of thing.
Sure.
And I'm kind of curious if there were maybe different moments that really stood out to you where you felt very challenged or frustrated and felt like you really had to adapt or evolve, whether it be teammates, metas, all that type of stuff.
So you're asking if there was one specific time that was the most challenging?
Yeah, or if there has
Like
been
meta?
multiple times, yeah.
Okay. That's a good question. I think one of the most challenging times was probably when the Kings formed, because I think there's just a lot of strong personalities and a lot of people who want to play their own game. I think Harry has a very specific way of playing, and so does Genetics, and they're not necessarily good or bad together. And then I've got to figure out how I'm going to play with my front line. And then it was Royd, but Royd and Jarkor actually play somewhat similar, but maybe that's a product of playing with Sam. But I feel like early on, I'm going to say specifically the start with Royd, the first few months was like, I remember we had like our first game set and we got 2-0'd by you guys, and I went 0-29.
Oh, I do remember that.
Oh my god.
Over 2 games. The Hunbats game was like, it was like 0-16 or something. It was like,
I love that.
and that's like my best god, man. Like, so it was just absolutely miserable. It was like, I'm thinking, oh man, they kicked me and then they just like smashed me into the ground. This is like, the team is not working. Sam just like dunked Harry for first blood at like 3 minutes in the first set, and you know, Harry's dead and we're all behind. We're all like, we don't know what's going on. Scrims went kind of well early on, and then like it's like back to snap back like to reality kind of. It's like this isn't. And then, you know, it took, and Genetics came straight from the SML, and he is a good player, but he had a lot to learn. He was also in England too, so he had a bad ping.
Jordan was as well, right, big man?
Yeah, you guys had 2 people on ping.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and Jordan can handle the ping a lot better, but Sam, like if something does happen bad, like he misses a Faf hammer or whatever, then that's gonna like kind of affect the next thing he does. He's gonna like maybe rush it or delay it too much. He's gonna hold the hammer because he doesn't believe in himself. And like that team early on was like really, really hard to work with, and it was hard to keep it positive, I think. And I'm not like this messiah of positivity. I'm just like, I'm just a product of my environment a lot of the time. And I think early on, turning that team into or trying to be part of a team that could be productive and have like an arrow going upwards rather than an arrow that went just sideways or down, with a lot of the mood I think that was like the biggest challenge of my career so far.
Yeah, I feel like you guys were, like you said, you were losing some games, and like winning definitely helps. Like that, from my experience at least, whenever I've been in a team that has been struggling, getting a couple wins fixes almost everything, but it doesn't really fix it at the same time, if you know what I mean.
It like fixes your confidence, but not the issues,
but like
sort of thing.
it helps you work to like the goal of like making things better, easier. Like it makes everything feel a lot nicer. But it's funny, like this year I kind of felt like the same thing going into it with my team. Everybody expected us to do really good at the start, which is fair because we just made finals at Worlds. But we had Cyclone coming back from like a 5-6 month break. He didn't really play much Smite. And then we had Baskin coming in as well. And he has like a really specific way he likes to play Smite as well.
Him and Sot they're not the same players.
Exactly. And Sino 2 is still pretty new for the team.
Yeah.
So like him and Paul were trying to figure things out as well. So there's just a lot of things going into that, and I feel like we've done a pretty good job of like learning how to work with each other this year. And it's like it's funny that like you brought it up like with your team. Like that's how I kind of felt like the start of the year was for us. And I feel like we're starting to improve a lot faster than we were at the start. Like it was weird because we did really good like in our beginning scrims, but then like as it got closer to SPL, like other teams started ramping up, I feel like, and like they just had more, I don't know, like the other teams were new as well, but I feel like they learned maybe faster than us, it felt like. But now I feel like we're catching back up and we're learning really fast again. But like you saying that really reminds me of that. And then another thing that it reminds me of is season 7 when I was on Radiance. And we never figured it out on that team.
Yeah.
Like, which is crazy to say because I think we played you guys in both the finals, right, that year?
Yep.
That's right.
Did they call it? I don't know what they call it. Masters, and then like
or like playoffs or whatever.
I can't remember what they called it, but yeah, I was like, it was a really weird team because like what we had at the beginning of the year, I feel like was kind of what we were the entire, like we didn't really ever get much better. It felt like as a team, and we were just all really good players, and we kind of just won off of that. Like we never came together and like.
Do you remember the start of that season, like your first few matches by chance?
I don't remember, but I think we lost like a good amount of matches at the start, I think.
I remember it being so funny to me, and I remember it's funny that in hindsight you have said it the way you have, because I remember watching you guys. I think maybe we played you like week 2 or 3, and I think both of our teams were, I think we were both undefeated going into it. I think you guys had like the base race against it was PK at the time.
Okay, yeah, I remember that game. Yeah. Biggie would laugh so hard at that because Biggie was in our room and he was like, I was like, base race. Like that's what I said in the game when it was happening. Biggie always brought that up like the rest of the year. He's like, oh wait, is it a base race time? It was really funny. But yeah, no, I remember that actually. But yeah.
From my perspective,
did we win the first? I think we won the first couple games out.
Yeah, you won your first couple sets, and I think we had played you either week 2 or week 3. And I remember you guys were playing. You were playing so much. I think Uller was really OP at the time. Yeah. You guys were playing a lot of Herc Uller, and I remember you guys literally like montaging people in duo. Like you and Cyclone were getting 2v2 kills. Like,
I do remember that.
They were getting 2v2 kills off cooldown, and I think you guys played against us. And I remember going into that set, and me and Max or Panda. We were like, yeah, this whole set, like we're probably going to have 2 teams completely running it down duo a little bit. And game 1, we played against you, and I think we like body blocked you at purple or something. We like killed you.
Yeah.
And I remember the next game was like the hardest pivot I've ever seen. They went like full late game, and then from there on out, I don't think I ever saw you and Spin play a pressure lane like the rest of the year.
Okay.
It was so weird.
I can't remember. I think it was the first... Did we end up beating you guys in that set, or did you beat us?
I think we won that set, and then I think the second round robin, I'm pretty sure you beat us.
Okay, because I remember, I can't remember, that might have been our first loss. And I know we lost to Cherio's team. That were they
SSG,
running?
I think.
Were they SSG that year? Yeah. So we lost to Cherio's team that year, and I remember Cherio beat us with Erlang, and I came into scrims and I was talking to Big Man, and I was like, yeah, Erling's like is pretty hard to play against, and I think he's pretty good. We should have probably banned it against them. And then adapting came in and he's like, Erlang is so bad. I'm like, okay. I wasn't even talking to him. I was just like talking to Big Man and we were having a conversation about it. And like, I feel like our communication in that team was it just never worked for whatever reason. I don't know why. Like,
do you think it was because this is something I also wanted to ask Ben about and something that I've gone through, like a bit of a learning curve this year. Do you think there was not a language barrier and like literally not understanding each other, but like the tone between the European and the North American players, like the way you communicate to one another?
You know, I thought about that a little bit, but then like if you talk to someone like Big Man, then you feel like that doesn't exist. Like I feel like he's such a chill, like I don't know, like he's just easy to talk, like he's like anybody else. Like it has nothing to do with EU or NA. It's just like how people are, I feel like.
Yeah.
That's a little shout out to Big Man. I think we can relate on is like the more you get to know him, the more you just love him as a little like
we're about to say a little guy.
He's just a great little mid laner, just farming away, and
he's just easy to work with.
He out inside and out of the game. If you just speak to him, like he's such a way better teammate than I think anyone really gives him credit for.
100%.
If you speak to him on a one-on-one level, he's really good.
Yeah, and it, like having him, like it was surprising like that we couldn't get it all like on the same, like it just felt like there was just disagreements that we can never settle on that team. And like it still shocks me to this day that we did as good as we did, like in so many of the tournaments. And like,
yeah, I mean, you guys literally went like finals, semis, right?
Yeah, and the funny thing going in that Worlds, I'm like, we're gonna win this even after like this whole year. And I'm like, Ghost, or were you guys Ghost? I'm like, Ghost is not beating us 3 times in a row in the finals. That's what I said, but then we didn't even make it to the finals. Like I didn't say that in publicly, but I just said like if we're gonna play them, I remember that's what I kept saying. I'm like, we're not gonna lose to them.
I think we thought we were gonna play you guys as well.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, that like for me, that was my biggest like career shifting thing. Like it's funny, like you said, like we were running a lot of pressure. Like it was just that team. Like I was talking about earlier, like there wasn't a lot of people that were down to get dirty, like on that team. Like, like it was only me, kind of. Like
that's a problem, by the way. If a team doesn't have like if they only have one person that's down to get dirty, as you say, that's like that player is gonna look so out of touch with the rest of the team.
Yeah.
Yes.
In a lot of ways, and it's like so painful to overcome that problem.
I feel like it's really hard for the person who does that to also communicate to their teammates as well. Yeah. Like it's not even like the scapegoating thing, because I think that's more on the public end and less of like your actual teammates. But I think like I've noticed it a little bit this year, like, and it kind of goes back to the language barrier thing. I don't mean it like a literal language barrier, but the way people think about the game is a little bit different, because I feel like you reach different conclusions. Like I had always said it about Twig when we had first played on Rival, like our thought process, how we reached conclusions about like how we think the game should be played or meta, normally our thought processes would be totally different, but our conclusions, like we could at least like reach some level of common ground or be like, oh, okay, like you maybe think this is a little bit better than I do, but if I play like this character, it maybe helps you out or something like that. Like you could always find some middle ground. And I feel like it's so hard to reach a middle ground with the whole like, it's not even like, because you can't teach it necessarily, like the getting dirty plays, like to tell someone like, yeah, you should just go in here and die is so hard to explain it to people.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, it's impossible. I think that actually is maybe one of the biggest like catalysts for how a team doesn't go well over years and years of Smite, of there just being a mismatch of players that just they want to maybe look terrible for the possibility of breaking out like a good fight, or a fight that seemed good at the time, maybe like an overload with numbers disadvantage. They just wanted to start something, even if it looked like the worst engage known to man. They just wanted to start like that. Like if you guys remember the Warrior set today, the Sunday,
the 0-9 game or whatever it was.
The time I blinked in with Hebo, like that was just the worst thing ever. I'll admit it. But like there was just such a mismatch of me wanting to get something started, knock up dead, like in the knock up, and that's it.
Right.
And it looked like the worst play known to man. It's like there's just going to be times where I think a lot of, and I have players like that. I mean, Harry is like so perfect for the way I play. because he gets it too in the same way, and you can't have 5 people like that because you're never going to win a game.
Yes.
You will just end off.
You're never going to win a game. All your carries are just going to die on randomly, and your front line's just going to die randomly. There's no like core holding it together.
Yeah.
What I've learned this year is that my mid laner is the other person who knows how to get dirty. So it'll just be me and Dardas just inting back and forth. Oh god.
Yeah. So like that year, like the season 7 year, like I was like the only one like that on my team, so it felt really bad and it was like really frustrating for me. So I was kind of forced. Like I always say, like that year was like my most like my least enjoyable year of playing, like by like a massive margin, like huge.
That's really interesting.
But that year is the year I learned the most about like Smite, I feel like, because I had to kind of change the way I thought and kind of change the way, like I was forced to play more of like a backline style, and I feel like it really helped me like in like the last like 3 years, like season 9 and season 8 and the beginning of this year. So it made me a better player, but it was not fun.
I was gonna say you probably got a lot better at Smite, but the other thing is you probably got a lot better as a teammate. Even if that year is a year to forget, whatever, you probably learned so much about how to treat other teammates, new teammates, and like how to navigate like controversial times. Like that story with the Erlang thing, I feel like every team that's ever come, every 2 people, if you ever want to suggest a god that someone doesn't play a lot, then there's going to be a confrontation. And it's like bringing that up. I mean, I still have no like playbook for how to do that, because it's like if someone doesn't like a character, whether they're good or not, it's just impossible sometimes to have that talk.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it probably made you a better teammate as well as a better Smite player.
Yeah, 100%. And like that year too, like I was like, I feel like junglers like you, I played with more junglers that were down to get in there, and like I think Adapting was like the first jungler I ever played with who was not down to get in with, like when I went in, like because I played with Pern. Yeah, he's always down. He's always down to rumble. I played with Sino. Again, he's another one. And then I played with Scream. And I feel like those like 3 are like stereotypical like NA get in there junglers.
They
like,
will
as
be
much
getting
as you can
involved.
get.
Yeah. And with that, especially if you're a jungler, with that comes inconsistency, right?
Yeah.
And I'd say if there's one thing for Adapting is that he is like a consistent player at what he does. He does it every game. Win or lose, he'll do the same thing every game in terms of like how he plays. He's very on the nose.
Right.
Like I feel he's got like an integrity to the way he plays. He'll do the same thing every game. If you play well with it, like I think people like Yamin and Rafa did.
I gained
Rafa
so
was
much
so good with
respect
it,
after that year. Like 'cause I always thought Rafa was like an okay, like I always thought he was good, but I didn't think he was like he won back-to-back worlds. Like after that year, I was like, dang, Rafa was really good. Like, and then same thing with Emilito. I feel like them as a dual lane, like during the time, like maybe nowadays it wouldn't work as much, but like back in season 2, season 3, and even season 4 when they were having a lot of success, like they both got in there. Like I loved watching Emilito play. Yeah, it was probably one of my favorite players to watch.
He was very entertaining.
Emil was so unique as well, because I remember him being like the first ADC that you guys remember, like all the Chronos, like literally flank Chronos plays, like diving into the backline. And at the time, it looked like a meme because no one else did it at the time.
I mean, I played against that for years, and he was the only one that would play like that properly.
And I remember thinking that, and now, like to your point with Kenneth, like I now realize like the amount of space he probably created for Kenneth and Yemen to do their thing. Like it's so much easier to do the job of like being the dirty player when you know you have people behind you who are going to back it up. Like for you and Harry now, like of course your backline and your support are like incredible players, so you can have faith in them.
Well, there's trust, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's trust and there's like faith that this will lead to something good. And I feel like it's really hard to build that trust like so early on in a team. I would say like maybe your story about the Kings initially, or like for you in season 7, for me even now, like I remember Liam Orvote has told me, like he was like, yeah, when you first joined the team, I thought you were just going to be a pressure bot. Like, yeah, just like slam it down, guys. Let's run it down. Like, and it was so hard to like explain like how I wanted to get better, because I feel like when you join different teams or when you want like a change of pace, I feel like normally you have an idea of like what you want to get better at. Like I would say for me, we probably see pretty eye to eye, like the rival ghost years, like things we thought the team was probably bad at. And I think for us, like I've had a lot of time to reflect on those off seasons and maybe the changes that were made. And I got to the point last year where I was just like, pointing fingers or like trying to fix it in an individual change just isn't going to work. It has to be like an overall like team atmosphere, like mindset change. And I feel like that's so hard to do, and it's something that I'm struggling with now. I mean, I don't think I've ever had this bad of a split like record wise as I am right now, but I feel like the amount that I've learned just about like even like Laspra with like the kind of not like the language barrier thing, but like just keywords that you might say in a fight of like, oh, go on this guy is like does that mean like zone him? Does it mean commit to him? Does it mean I'm killing him? Does it mean like, you know, what does that actually mean? There's so many small things like that, but I feel like it takes so much time to build trust in players in that spot. And I feel like for me, like when you do have a role like of being the dirty player, like I'm playing, like I'm in a meta where I'm playing like Hell and Afro support. Like how can I can't,
There's no dirtiness.
I can't get there, you know, like I can't do it. So it's so, I feel like metas actually challenge you a little bit as well in that regard. Cause I remember, I don't know if you remember it as much, but season 6, we really struggled because there was kind of like after, I think it was MSI, we had lost to an SEC team.
Yeah.
And then you guys played Renegades in the finals. And that was when the kind of that like mage ADC meta thing started.
That was the worst finals ever. I remember Cyclone went to Anime Expo, so we didn't scrim that. Okay, that was the weirdest tournament ever. I can't believe we did as well. Like no other tournament in the history. Like I've scrimmed and like double blocked before like big tournaments like that. We didn't scrim for 12 days before that tournament.
God.
We just went in with no scrims. He came back and we played the tournament. We beat United. We're like, okay, we won. And then you guys lost. We're like, okay, we're against an SCC team. We're like, what's going on? And then we made it to the finals because we were just like, you know, like we knew Baskin wasn't gonna stay on the roster because he was gonna go back to school. So we were like, we're gonna try our best. But like he scheduled this event and he really wanted to go, so we were all fine with him doing it. Like prior to the year starting and us knowing the schedule. So we're like, yeah, just go, whatever. We'll just go into it and see what happens. Yeah. And like we ended up making the finals, but that tournament was so troll. I remember. You know,
it's so funny that you say that because even before that, I had always had the opinion like people I think get really tunnel visioned, like not only like the community, but I think pro players as well get really tunnel visioned on the idea of like what the meta is. And to me, that tournament is such a good example because Renegades won. And they happen to be playing like Dardas on like AMC and on really her every game.
That game with Rafford defending.
Yeah. They started defending the invades and all of that, and then they would have Funball play like a lot of Zhong and like other mages, and it kind of started like a mage ADC meta after that. And I remember we did really well the first phase, and then before the second phase we were scrimming. And we were getting owned, like just destroyed. I think Helmet was really OP on ADCs.
Arkill, right? And he was playing like on her and Uller only, basically.
Yeah, we were trying to play against the mages, and we like tried to have him play like Thoth and other random stuff. I think teams had literally role swapped, like Vote and Zeros had role swapped on PK, and like just all this crazy stuff was happening. I remember we had a really long talk. I think me, you, and Alec did at one night, and we were talking about like how do we win, and it's so hard to come to grips with like the way your teammates are different. I remember we were just like, we don't want Arkill playing mages and farming for 30 minutes. Like, let's just put him on an aggressive hunter and let him run it down the lane, and we'll just take the coin flip. Like either he owns them or he doesn't, sort of thing. And I feel like, I think my initial point with all of this was that when you have that sort of style and the learning, I was going to ask you, Ben, we played a lot of like Erlong, I think, in that regular season. And then I think right before Worlds, was it Crusher or Heartseeker? One of them got like turbo buffed. And so did
Heartseeker.
It was Heartseeker, and Thor got like he got his rekit and he was just broken.
The other thing is if Thor dunked on someone, he got like the ult damage to get proc, and then the like lightning would give him an extra proc.
Yeah.
So he'd like double. I don't know if Crusher was the same thing.
Yeah, it was.
Then, but if you got both, you'd literally double proc both items and spin and proc it again, and it's like, and like the single best thing you could do at level 20 as a jungler is dunk on someone and spin. Like,
Yeah.
and they're just dead if they don't like beads Aegis as well. Like both of them.
Yeah. You had said something, I don't know if you'll remember it, but it stuck with me because it was the first time I ever had a teammate look at it the way you did, because you were always a very confident teammate in like knowing your role or what you thought you were able to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember you just saying straight up to everyone, you were like, guys, if we think this is just broken, and I do think it's broken, I'll play Thor and we can practice it. But I'm telling you right now, I'm not a very good Thor player. We will be more successful if we like do this other stuff. And we literally like, it felt so good to have our own like little style, because I think we had we played like a bunch of double hunter comps, and you would play Athena, Poseidon, and Hebo, and I would play like Fafnir or Khepri, and we would just like have a trio in mid.
I had like a 6 split on Ares as well.
Yeah,
it
was
like
that split.
Four Ares games jungle.
Yeah,
which is like crazy.
We played like a bunch of magical junglers, and you and I just ran it down on the map to get the carries ahead. And going into Worlds, like I felt like it was so weird where we played so differently from everyone else, and we had pretty good success that whole phase. And it really, I felt like you were always such a level-headed person with knowing your strengths and weaknesses and knowing what you did or didn't want to do while also being confident in yourself. I never really had a teammate like that, and I was kind of curious, like, what led you to get to that point?
I think for me, like I'm not really a like real-time video game player. I really like turn-based games. I liked like Age of Empires, StarCraft 2 kind of, but that's real-time games. Like what I really like is like strategic games, like a game like chess, or like a turn-based game like Magic the Gathering, or like just anything that's like I have my time. I'm gonna make my move, and then the other guy can make his move. And I think it's like a strategy thing. For me, it's like, well, and it was the same with Kenny. I remember that conversation that night. Like I think we went to the gym, but we talked for a long time. We went somewhere and talked.
Yeah.
And like thinking like, oh, what's gonna make us different? What I want to avoid on every team, and I think every team would do well to do it, is like turn up on match day and just hope that your 5 players play better on game day. Maybe they slept better, and just hope, say a little prayer and just hope that you 5 just do better than the other. You've got to like come to the game and say, we do something better than that team, and that's why we're going to win. And it was like with Kenny, I thought he was one of the best Ulla and her players
100%
in the league, and I still would think he is. So why not just use that? They don't have bad matchups against like Zhonghui, for example. If you just hit your stuff, you're gonna like do fine. And then we tried to leverage that, a whole split. What I could do better than other junglers is not play Thor. It was like to play like Athena and play with the team and play like same with Poseidon.
Did you play? You didn't play Anubis until the year after, right?
Yeah,
that was my mid year.
Yeah,
that was another thing where I decided I could play Merlin and be worse than Paul. I could be worse than Big Man. I could be worse than Shinto, who are all like, they're just like so clean, with those gods. Or I could just play Anubis and ult Ymir, and that's like, and I remember thinking that to myself, and it's like, well, it's hard to say. It's just I like to think of it as like a different card that we can play, that any team should be able to play, and every player should look at themselves and say, what do I do better than other players?
Have you ever had maybe a difficulty communicating that with your teammates? Like, for example, whether it be the rival, the Ghost years, or maybe on Obey years before, was it ever difficult for you to explain why you looked at things that way or how that could be a win condition? Because I remember when you were mid, I think that was it was not a difficult year because we were doing so well, but I think finding our style with you in mid was hard at the start. You would play like Nuwa and stuff like that, and then it was like a Raijin meta.
Well, there was a Merlin Raijin meta.
Yeah.
It was like first pick. And I think people liked Merlin better, so they'd like first pick Merlin, and then you'd pick Raijin before, maybe, I don't know if that was bottom 2 bans then, but but you'd pick Raijin against it, and you'd have similar like AoE damage, and that's it. And I was way better at the Raijin side of the flip, but I didn't, to be honest, I didn't even want to be there, like on either side. I just didn't think that was good. I didn't think it was different. I didn't think those gods didn't. I think Raijin was okay at early damage, but like Yeah, I mean, it was hard because I remember. I mean, my positioning was like dreadful. I learned so much last year. That year, sorry, from mid. And I mean, the reality is that you guys needed to just wait a few months for me to like learn what to do. And that's why I think it was so hard.
I remember. Sorry to interrupt, but I remember the Oleron game, the first one you played, and you flanked into the fight
behind
at Red Buff. Yeah, at Red Buff. Yeah. I remember that. And I'm like, the jungler's back, baby. And you just get one shot. I remember watching that.
Dude, I remember, I think it was me and Panda. We had talked to Benji. Maybe we saw him at the gym or something. After we played you guys in the finals, I think the first finals, we saw Benji at the gym. And Benji was like, that was the most miserable set ever. And we were like, why? Like, it went to game 5. It was like a good set. And he's like, you don't understand. You have 3 junglers on your team. Because it was me, Twig, and Sim. And we would just always like flank or just gank off cooldown. But the season 7 thing with conveying your ideas, I remember being really frustrated that first split because I didn't understand, like, I knew what Ben or Twig was really good at, but I didn't understand like how we were going to make it work in mid. But we all obviously had so much confidence in him as a player that even when we thought it was a good idea to get Sam in the jungle, that we still didn't want to lose him as a teammate. And we thought he would be really good in mid. That second phase in season 7, I had said it publicly all the time too. If there was like an MVP of our team, it would have been him for sure. For literally no other reason than his god pool. I think it made me and Sam look so much better than people realized just because of the amount of space that he would make. Because I remember back then was still a meta where I was picking a lot of like Herc and RDO and like Ymir like high in the draft, and people would pick these gods that could just completely own me in a team fight. And whenever they would pick things to own me, he would pick like the greediest thing to punish it in mid. Like if they played Merlin, he would literally just play like Oleron or Anubis and just gun them down. Like they'd be under their tower for 20 minutes. Like
I loved that, man. I loved the little Oleron just slammer and then just like stay at their tower line for 15 minutes. And if we haven't won by then, we lose. It's fine. And I just loved that.
It was actually, I don't know if you'll remember this. It was actually against them. There was a tournament where I played Nox like almost every game, and he was playing Ymir, and we scrimmed them after that tournament before Worlds. And you were playing Ymir every game in scrims, and you were owning us. And because we weren't used to losing pressure on that side of the map. That was like normally like the thing we did, and it became like a first pick Ymir meta. And every game you guys were first pick side. That's
when they changed the Ymir wall. To, you could bring it down. It was right before Worlds.
And you could put it over walls as well.
Yeah. You could put it over walls, and then you could like retract it.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
So it literally became a first pick Ymir meta, and anytime they were first pick, they would own us because we would just get railed on pressure.
Yeah.
And then I remember there was a conversation we had where me, Max, and Sam didn't know what to do about it because we just couldn't fight early, and it was like, okay, I guess we can play on the back foot, but that's not really how we've played all year. So it was a really hard like last minute adjustment before Worlds, and you were literally like, guys, we're getting walled in and we're trying to disengage. I'm just gonna play Anubis and ult this guy.
Yeah, if I get walled, then he's walled in with me.
He's walled in with who?
Yeah, it's like I might die, but he's going down with me. And that actually, it completely changed those drafts into Worlds. It completely changed it for us. Like we played the Renegades, and I remember Jake played Ymir. And I literally started laughing in the draft because I knew what was coming, and we bottom 2'd Anubis, and you like came over level 5, gank duo instantly, double kill, game over.
Dude,
that's so good.
Our team, like at least like I remember I was talking to like, I think it was like, I can't remember if it was Big Man or Psycho, it was someone I was talking to, or no, it was Benji, I think. It was Benji and Big Man, I think I was talking to them. I'm like, dude, they just have two of the best junglers like in the league on their team. They're just playing double jungle every game. Because like you would gank side lanes more than like I'd say like 80% of the junglers in the league, like as a mid laner, which was because you would always either come to duo, gank duo, even if you don't kill them, you would get them a purple buff or something.
Yeah.
And then like, or you do the same thing in solo side.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of the junglers, I remember like whatever team Fred was on, was that with
Fred was on PK.
PK?
Yeah.
Yeah, like they're the team that won that year. And like you ganked more than he did, like as a jungler, which was crazy to me. And I thought it like helped your guys' team a lot.
It did. It carried us so hard. I think just especially draft, it was so crazy because SSG was so good that year, like in the regular season. That was the whole like Cherry, Kali, Erlong was like permaban from him every single game. And I remember drafting against that team. It felt so easy just because we had so many, like, nobody else was playing Alaron and Poseidon and Anubis mid, and just all of those gods would just
there was like
insta-kill
a
people.
Hebo first pick meta that in that full split too, which was really good for me.
Yeah, and it was so funny because it just completely, like, I feel like as the years went on, there was that stigma maybe early seasons where it was just like, oh, like NRG, Epsilon, C9, like they just click their buttons better than people. And then I feel like the game continued to evolve in a strategical way, and then I felt like you really saw people's playstyle shine. I think the first time I had played against you was actually my rookie season. You guys made Worlds over us. It was like the fifth place
Eager?
one. Yeah, I was on Eager and you were on Fnatic, and I remember back then it was probably more exacerbated then than ever. The whole like NA is early game, EU is like a late game style thing.
Oh yeah.
When did you find that? Do you feel like you were always that type of player, or did you feel like it kind of shifted? Because I remember thinking when you were on Obey that you guys started to have a lot of success against NRG and Dig specifically, and I felt like you and Emilzy kind of just played the map better than people at that point.
Like, do you mean like when do you think my playstyle changed a lot?
Yeah, when do you think you started focusing on like map play and strategy and that type of thing?
I was gonna say a long time ago when you were talking about the Radiance year that you had, that it was just impossible to make things work. And the only way I could relate to that is that those 2 years I played on Fnatic, but more specifically, it's the season 2 year when I was jungle. Because when I was mid, whatever, I was just trying to learn the game. I didn't even know how to tie my laces, you know. But like, the year I was playing jungle, I had to learn the role. It's not like ranked. That's the first thing I learned. And then like the other thing is, all the players, Zeros didn't really want to rotate. He wanted to get big, farm up. Reals didn't want to be away from the dual lane. And I mean, Maniac wanted to rotate and make plays, but maybe the map wasn't like.
He's a soul laner.
That was just a product of being on Fnatic. Like, no matter what I wanted to do, and I didn't have a real play style back then. No matter what I wanted to do, the team always just wanted to farm it out. Like, and I think maybe we were responsible partly for the like EU thing being just late game, because I mean it was par for the course. We couldn't do anything else, whether I wanted to or not. And Badger was focused on peeling a lot, so that team, the best thing that ever happened to me was like getting kicked from that team, because people didn't want to play with what I wanted to do, and I mean I didn't really want to play with how they wanted to play. So Obey was the first team where I really learned like to play my own style, and Prime wanted to facilitate what I wanted to do. Both supports, Frezzy specifically, big shout out to him, he wanted to do that. He wanted to play aggressive. He honestly, I think if there's a player that played the same style as you, of all players of all time, Aror, it's actually Frezzy. Because, and I think Frezzy is way better than like what he got credit for. Like he just wanted to make things happen all the time. And then I think that like style of like, oh, well, if you just want to be strong, I can just like play Erlang. And Erlang was like this very different, like not like he was meant for solo, I think. And like no one was really playing him jungle. And I was thinking, well, he's got a like taunt, root, and a knock up. Like surely this can't be bad if there's just a Zeus behind me, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that's like those years.
Exactly.
Yeah, it just, and we did it. Yeah, you did it too. And it's like it's like that's where I really learned my play style, or like at least how, if you're a different team than other teams, that can just be a win for you, and if you stick to it.
I really want to ask about something you said in there, because something we had brought up was, I think we were talking about kind of, you know, all the teammates that we've all had over the years and talking about your Obey team. I feel like Prime and Ataraxia have always been considered like just such great teammates by everybody they've ever played with. I'm really curious when you had a certain way that you thought about the game, because that team was successful, right? They made finals season 1, that like kind of core, or Prime and Ataraxia together. And then I think in season 2, they didn't do quite as well as they wanted to. I think they had a pretty up and down year.
I don't think they made it at the end, which was like a super big disappointment to them.
Yeah, but I think their final split, they actually did quite well. Like I think, because they had role swapped Ataraxia to solo at one point, right?
Yep, they did, and they had like fine games for sure.
Yeah, and I remember when you had joined that team, I don't think anybody really rated you guys that highly. Was that the year that you guys started really poorly before you made a roster change?
Yeah, so we were 0-8 at one point.
Yeah.
And there was 8 teams in the league, and the top 3 made it to Sweden.
You guys made it because we played against you guys.
I remember, like, after the last match we lost, next week we played against Fnatic for the first time. We were 0-8 or something. We had them back-to-back for some reason. That was just the way the schedule worked.
Oh, did it like snake format or something?
Yeah, exactly. Maybe 0-7. But like we hadn't played them yet, and I remember like going on a walk and thinking like maybe this career path. I just got kicked. I'm with 0-7 in the league. We had Zindern, who just wasn't a support player. He just wasn't. And I remember Harry saying, "I'm going to leave if we don't like make something happen." And we got Frezzy, and no one like Frezzy had kind of a worse reputation like as a team. Like he just did. People thought of him as a ranked troll, basically. And like I remember going on a walk and thinking like maybe just Smite's not it. I'm not good. I just got kicked, and now I'm 0-7. We're not going anywhere. I always thought of myself as a player that could at least like make it to lands. On Fnatic we did.
Right.
And like be competitive, and then we just went on this like insane miracle. Like that was like one of the best like 2-month, 3-month periods of my life, because we like hit the Fnatic with the win snake draft, and like we needed those wins. We needed those 2 wins. We need basically every win we got, so we could even clinch 3rd place, and we did it. And like as a 21-year-old kid, like you just want to go to everything. You want to free tickets, hotel rooms. It's like amazing. It's like surreal, and like that was like such a sick like period for us.
That was a 500 pop meta as well.
That was so fun.
Yeah. I remember that was like, didn't we play against you in season 3? The set you were talking about. Didn't Datic go like red pot?
No, that was season 2. Yeah, I think they went. It was season 2. It was red pot meta at that Worlds and then through spring, and then I think they nerfed it mid-season 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you guys like first splitted them early game, and Zap and I were like, uh-oh. Like he was playing Thana, I think that game. He lost. You were playing Humbots. I think you guys first splitted them.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, and then it just was a nightmare. When you mention that kind of miracle run, often it's kind of a mix of everything, whether it be like, positivity or a roster change, like maybe like a honeymoon phase, or it could just be like something clicking. Do you remember something back then that really clicked with you guys that you felt like kind of attributed to that?
I think it was with Frezzy joining in, it was like we really played around our core, and we played like Prime was a really good Raijin at the time, and Raijin had really recently been released around then. And like I remember, he's been competitively meta in and out for like years and years, right? Mm-hmm. And like Prime was a really good Raijin. Frezzy really wanted to play through the core. He wanted to like play and win with me in Prime. And I started realizing, I was like, okay, why don't I just play like some CC bots and then gods that can either kill their mid, jungle, or support. Like and then like it just worked. Like whatever happened in our side lanes, and usually they'd hold their own, both Nate and Harry at the time. They'd hold their own or do a bit better than their opponents. But like, why don't we just win our 3 every game? And until I think we faced you guys on Eager in Sweden, until we hit that brick wall of, this core is better than us.
Dude, Best was insane, by the way. He was so good. That like, it's funny, like you talk like, I feel like Prime and Best are like
the same player, because you guys played Zeus Fenrir against us the first game, and it was like whoosh, like water, like cold water awakening of, oh no, there's a core that cares about playing about the core and just bites a support into a Zeus ult, and it's unwinnable. Yeah,
I feel like we had, I can't remember, I think it was here. Remember they used to have like the 5 computers set up, and it was like really heavy AC, and there was like 5, it was like in the middle, like back over there, like how the studio used to be. You know what I'm talking about? Like the scrim room.
It was like the giant room, right?
Yeah. I remember I was talking to you, I think it was like me and Pern, and it was like during Super Regionals, and I remember we were having a conversation. I don't know if you remember this, but we were having a conversation of like how our teams kind of like operate differently than like everybody else, like within their region, because like we want to do what we want to do. We don't care about what anyone else thinks or says. And like, I feel like as a player, I feel like I relate to you a lot in that, because like what you were saying earlier is like, I'm gonna do this because I'm good at it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna play what I'm good at, and if you like that, you like that. If you don't, you don't. Like I'm gonna rock with what I think is good, and like I feel like having someone like that like kind of creates like a good like foundation for your team to like figure things out.
Well, yeah, it's like you want to have players like that, or have players that are simply better, you know?
Yeah.
Or a combination of both. And it's like, well, that like is a recipe for success, I think.
Yeah. And that tournament was, I feel like it's funny because we lost to NRG in that tournament, and I feel like both of our teams that year, like that's like a thing to your point, is like I feel like then they were kind of just better than
Is
everybody
this Worlds
else
or
still.
Sweden?
This was Sweden. We lost them at Sweden,
yeah.
and then like you guys beat us at Worlds. It was a pretty close,
Oh
close
yeah,
match.
that was a good set.
And I remember going into the finals, I'm like, Obey's gonna win. They just have like after watching NRG play, like their strategy was so bad compared to your guys' strategy.
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember going in, I'm like, Twig is the one buying Hog. They're putting TP on Variety. He's getting massive every game off it. He's playing things like Thanatos. And like they have like a way more stable like dual lane. And like they're just playing like really good like AoE mages in mid, and they're gonna play through Prime, and like Twig's just gonna be like a facilitator for them. But I feel like you guys in that final had like the way better strategy, but you just
we
just got outplayed.
Yeah. There was like a game I went Hog Erlang went 0-11.
Yeah.
They had Poseidon mid, and I just couldn't live a stun. So anyone would stun me, and I was just dead. But the reality was I just wasn't like good enough to play. Like the strategy we had, I think, was like winning.
It was insanely good. I feel
if
like
I just lived to level 12 with Hog, and Harry was like 3 levels ahead for free. I mean, there's just so many like nitpicky things. Like the reality was, if I think me, Frezzy were like just way better, then we'd have probably been able to win that strategically.
But I remember the year after that, season 4, there was the NRG Invitational. I got to play with you, and I remember. And that was a lot of fun because I
was
feel
super fun.
because
Was that the hell one?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you played with Kiki. I remember it was Kiki, Best, you, and then who was our
Emil.
Emil. Yeah. Yeah. So
what
literally,
a
like
treat.
some of my favorite people, like that I've loved watching play. Like I feel like we meshed so well in that tournament, and that was one of the most fun weekends of like.
I could actually believe that being a team, like the two of you with like Emil, that's like the perfect.
I was gonna
like,
say the
style.
EU and anything hadn't happened yet.
Yeah.
But it was like, we could have like stumbled on like a sick team that would have like worked out super hard, because Emil was like what I was saying about how we have our own unique style, but Emil was a perfect mix of both, of being just a quality player at the time, and have his own unique style. And I remember him just like running over with Chiron at level 11, just on a random reindeer skin, just running around. He's like 2 levels ahead somehow. Maybe I think it was because you had a good lane with Hell, and he just come over, and me and Kiki were just like not having a good time over in that solo. I think it was like Harry and Fred was our finals matchup, and they were actually teammates as well on Dig. So it's like they were just destroying me and Kiki. We just had we just didn't know what they had, better pressure picks and stuff. He just came over, killed them both with Chiron, and like it was just such a like perfect team. I felt like Best, as you said,
Best was so dominant. Like I feel like people don't realize
in NA he was super
how
dominant.
good he was. Like. If he didn't take that break, like when like between like season 4, beginning of season 4 to season 5, like because I feel like I still talk to Best all the time now. I'm really good friends with him. Like I'll play other games with him, like WoW and like whatever.
Yeah.
And like you said, like we had like a really good relationship. Like he's probably one of my best friends like I've played with like in Smite, and I always really enjoyed playing with him. He was like, he had the perfect mix, like ML, like he did his own thing, but he was also just better like at the same time. And I feel like he like a player like him is like Prime as well, just complements like your play. And it's like Big Man as well. Like Big Man really reminded me of like Best and Moswell, like so much.
Yeah, Big Man's more of a just better kind of guy. I don't think like he actually has this unique like thing.
I feel like he has like his
You think
unique
so?
picks a little bit. I feel like he can get down like on like the Zeus and like
He's like he's like a jack of all trades.
Yeah.
I think if you were to like you had like a random number generator for the mage tab and you just picked 1 to 20 of whatever the mage is, he could just be like
he can play hunters too. Like I feel like he does everything, big man kind of.
I think that's
Yeah.
maybe his niche, is that he just can just be anything that you want him to be.
Yeah, but I just feel like that tournament. I don't know. I had a lot of fun that weekend. I remember we got along really well of just like talking strategy like before the game.
It was just a fun weekend because we were kind of we were try hard.
Yeah,
which
of
in
course.
a good way, you know, like because I think
I hate that. I hate that word though. Try hard.
Try hard. Yeah.
I'm always gonna. If I'm playing in competition, I'm gonna try my hard. I'm gonna be the biggest try harder person in the planet.
Right.
Like if I'm playing ranked, like even if it doesn't look like I'm try harding. Like I'm always trying to win. Like I always hate when people use the word try. I'm like, of course I'm doing that. Yes, I am a try
I think
hard.
maybe that's something we all three can relate to. I remember what I always said. It's just cool to care. You know?
Dude,
I'd always talk about that.
You know what's funny? I almost say that on a weekly basis right now because Dardes likes to give off this. He like cares so much. I never realized it because I never really like talked to him or played with him. But he's just one of those guys. I think Benji was this way too. That maybe you'd relate to. Like they give off this vibe to people that they don't care, but it's just not true at all.
Yeah,
like they absolutely care. I don't think you can play something professionally, whether it's a sport, esport, anything. Like you can't be a professional like competitor without caring, without wanting to like win.
Mm-hmm.
And Dardes will do this thing where me or someone will criticize him. It's normally me or Cherry will criticize him and be like, dude, there's a gank called, you just walk up, you go in anyways, and then you die and you absolutely screw our game. And he's like, you know, I'm just trying to make space, you know, this type of thing. I don't really care, CBA. And he does that stuff, and I was like, I always will say, you know, a wise old friend used to tell me that it's cool to care and it's cool to try.
It's like the gimpiest stuff.
Yeah, and he's always like, yeah, who said that? And I said, current world champion, buddy. Pay some respect. I love it. But yeah, I mean, I think it's funny your guys' experience playing together in the Season 4 Invitational, because when I had played, it was Season 5, the Unite Invitational, I had played with Kenny, or Arcol, who I had ended up teaming with. But someone who really impressed me was I played with Variety, and at the time I think Variety and Arcol were probably the best pair of like laners in EU, like in my opinion from the outside. And I think like Benji and Benji and Panda were probably like about the same thing in our region. And playing with two different players in those roles was so eye-opening to me. I never played with Harry, but I remember playing with him and thinking like, this is so crazy the way that he looks at the game. Like I'd never had a soul laner who called rotations the way he did, who was like so commanding in team fights, who was like as good at engaging as he is. Like there were so many small things that Harry did back then where I was just like, no wonder this guy just wins all the time. Like no wonder he is just a winning player. I know you always used to say that.
Yeah,
like
that's like my best adjective for him is he's just a winner, and I don't even know how to even unpack that perfectly.
Yeah, I remember in Season 7 I actually was really low on him because it was the United year, and he was not playing well. That whole team was it was a train wreck.
He is a very mental player.
Yeah.
When he slumps, it's always to do with his mental, and it will affect how he plays in game. And if he's like got a good mental and he's confident, he's just. It's so hard to beat.
It's so interesting, though, how those sort of things they really change a lot, like those little tournaments. Because I remember playing with Harry when I knew I was going to have new teammates going into Season 6. I remember thinking, like, Benji was an insane player. Like, in my opinion, probably still one of, if not the best soul laners to ever touch the game. Like, he's an incredible player. But I remember just really liking the way Variety saw the game. I felt like it just matched up more with how I saw things. And I really wanted to play with a player who communicated like that. And I remember when we were talking about soul laners we wanted to get, I had brought up FineOK because everything I'd ever heard about him was that he was like a great teammate. He was really good at calming. He was like a good rotator, all these sort of things. And like, I never even spoke to the dude, played a single game with him or anything, but just like knowing what clicks in those tournaments or knowing what you like, or kind of how you guys say, like, when you find that mesh of a style or something that you want to do, and also they're just really good players, it just works out so well, obviously. Like, just buying into an identity, I think, is something that is so important for a team.
For sure.
Do you feel like there's been, I guess we've kind of like danced around it a little bit. We've talked a lot about the teammate side of things. Do you feel like there's been a specific meta in the jungle that really challenged you? Because from my perspective, like maybe something that both of us would experience is the Invader's Curse, for worse or better. It did just change support for sure. Like the way we were playing the early games, regardless of your teams, like even before there was like a full invade meta, I don't know how much you remember season 5, but it was like the buffs would spawn later than the waves. So you would still have this meta where it would be like, if you're the higher pressure, you would literally run up to their tower line and like kind of trap them in the tower and then push the first wave, go take their purple, that sort of thing. Like it just completely changed the game in my opinion. And it really forced it. I'm still learning, honestly, which is crazy to think like 3 years later, because like the past 2 years, I would just kind of run my head against a brick wall where I'm just like, I'm still going to get in there, you know, whatever. And I feel like I'm like slowly trying to unlearn that tendency. Was there ever a meta like that for you in the jungle?
Ooh, that's a good question. I feel like I'd have to like truly think about a lot of different, like there's been different times where they've just like crushed even like hybrid builds in the jungle, and they're like, you have to be building full damage junglers. Like you have to play Susano, you have to play, I guess, Hunbat's Daji. Like you cannot play Erlang, you cannot play Gilgamesh, you cannot play, I guess, the tanks of the past were like Athena.
Even like Rad or Circuit, like those bruiser characters.
Yeah. Right. I think they did it in season 5. Obey that was, I think, the worst regular season of my entire career. Well, the worst year of regular season.
That was when you guys had Rafa, right?
Yeah, we had Rafa, who I don't like, he never really meshed with us perfectly. He never really had that, like, Emilzy really worked for us in season 4, but season 5 it was like, also Zalia, I think the front line specifically, just they couldn't really get it right between them. Rafa wanted to go in when Zalia wanted to play back, and like they just weren't coordinated, and it just, like, even though me, Prime, and Nate were kind of, we played 3 years together, it never really worked. And there was like a meta, I think, before that Worlds, where all we did was play Zeus and Outwash with Soul Reaver and Good Cause. I think there was like spring and then summer of that year, there was like a meta where I think every jungler had to play Daji, if I remember right. And they were like, everyone was complaining about skins, because you could play Daji skins where you couldn't hear the ult very well, or her 3 or whatever. And like, I just remember you had to build full damage for a lot of Hydras, a lot of like just full damage builds. And that was after season 4 where I'd really started becoming my own player with like, oh, I know what to build with tank. I know when I need more damage. I know how tanky I can be. I know how many tower shots I can take while I dive this ADC. And like all these little things you learn, the other junglers are not learning when they're just playing ranked and they're 15-0 with Camazot's full damage. And like things that, as this repeating theme of like, I know I'm better than like everyone else at this, or maybe there's like Cherio who can play tanks too well. But there was like a couple times where I think they just nerfed to the ground, like Ansel, for example, or Mystical Male, whatever.
Yeah, that item used to be so OP. Oh my god.
You figured it out though, I remember, because I remember Sino stole your Merc build. Like where you went like Frostbound, and it was like end of season 5.
Was he sort of controlling the movement speed in that build?
Yeah. It was like Frostbound. I can't remember what else was in the build.
He procced it with his 1. He procced it with his 1 at the time, and I remember just thinking it was the most OP thing, because people behind you could just chase after the guy you're punching, and they can't fight you anymore because they're slowed, and your guys behind you are just like running at them. And it's like, I just love that, because
we played it against them when we beat them the first time in the
was that the regular season?
It was the regular season.
I remember that.
We played Merc with Frostbound, and we ran them down. I remember you were playing it because It's funny you say that because it was like a full damage thing, but like towards the end of like that year, I feel like you started to figure out
People figured out
how to play
the new tank items to go.
Like stone cutting, Erlang, I think became really popular,
sure. And that would make you tanky, you know.
Like was it stone cutting, and then what was it, Wingblade or Witchblade? I can't. It was like one of the blades you would go like in the movement speed tree on Erlang with like stone cutting.
Maybe it was Wingblade a lot. I think.
Yeah, it was
I think it was Wingblade.
It was like stone cutting Wingblade, and you'd be like an Erlang just flying around the map.
You'd just be impossible to catch. You'd just be a little rat, you know, in your turtle or whatever, and it'd be so impossible to catch you with movement speed.
I'm gonna just because it's a funny story, I'm gonna throw someone under the bus with this. I remember being really impressed in season 5. I think specifically it was the qualifier tournament for Worlds was actually the main reason that I wanted to play with Twig, was because I think I always saw you as a really good like map player. Like I think you always had a lot of success in you playing things like Rat and Circuit. Like I remember a lot of games like that where you would just dominate. And then it was actually at that tournament when you guys qualified to Worlds, there was a play, not even a play, there was a game where you played Daji, and the game was a complete bloodbath. Like every single fight, it'd be like one solo laner, one jungler, one support. Like any 2 of those 3 would be alive, but all the carries would be dead constantly. Like they were both just dead on both sides. And I remember there was one play where you basically killed both backliners in a team fight. You're like full damage Daji, and then you go split push in mid. You solo kill their jungler, get the Phoenix, come over, kill their carries, and like end the game. And I was like, I've never seen Twig do that, but the fact that you can like also play that carry style is like so valuable to
that was a product of the year of just like as you said, challenging, because at some point I realized the best thing to do was to pick Daji and go full damage. So I had to learn, and that was back when you could play a bit more tanks, like further on full split to the Worlds qualifiers. But I still had that like Daji in the locker from like earlier that year when I just had to play it.
Yeah, I remember it was so funny because we talked about in our episode with Kabam, we talked a lot about kind of that Worlds meta, because I think you guys had played each other in the quarters, Splice and Obey. And you guys were, it's so funny you had said like the comparison with season 3 and the way you guys played in that World semis. Like you guys have actually had really similar like team play styles in a way, like the gods you end up playing or the way you end up valuing the game. And it's funny to hear you say that Sino took the Merc thing from him, because Sino was also the only jungler in NA who was playing Naja and Erlang. I don't know why I said that so weird. Who you were also playing.
Yeah.
And I remember we played against Erlang and Scrims. And we had Baskin, Benji, and Pandacat as our laners, which are really, really good laners, like especially for that time. Like they're washed now, obviously. Yeah. But really, really good. I'm trolling. Really, really good laners. And I remember Sino was moving around the map so fast. He just went stone cutting, Wingblade.
Travelers.
Yeah, and Travelers. He would just come invade our purple, and whether we played back or died or not, just didn't matter. We're just behind. And then he would go solo, and he would go gank Benji, and Divius would be on Geb, and now Geb's even in the lane. And then he would come mid and like gank Woony, take his red. He would just be everywhere. And I remember we were talking about it, and we're like, this god's OP. He comes over. If we try to 1v1 him, we're dead. If we don't 1v1 him, he can still force our beads or take our stuff. And we can't chase him because he's just faster. This god has to be broken. And Scream goes, yeah, I'm going to be honest, I just think you guys are playing like dog shit. And it's funny because Scream is not like that anymore. But that was the funniest interaction looking back that I've ever had, because I've never heard Scream talk like more highly and have more trust in his teammates other than like that split, like when he was so young, because he was like 17 years old back then. Like he thought his teammates were so good, and the confidence to just say, yeah, you guys are all playing like dog shit was so crazy to me. Like I respected it in a way, but it was just so funny because, to your point, it was like the new wave of tank junglers that people really just hadn't figured out yet, like why it was good, like literally just moving around the map faster and like how to get an advantage off that.
I mean, I guess you were right on the money about the Wingblade, because I feel like movement speed synergizes with like tank junglers so well, because you can just be everywhere and you can just avoid 1v1s as well. If let's say Scream would have the better 1v1, you just run away.
Yeah.
Scream was playing a lot of Alkwang, I remember, at that time too.
Didn't pick it. We didn't pick it at Worlds at all, man.
And he was dominating.
He was so good at that pick. Yeah. We fumbled that World so hard, man.
I learned that's a good thing to talk about. Did you learn any lessons like of holding picks? Because I remember I learned my lesson about holding picks back in season 3 or season 4 first phase. I was still in Eager. That's like the last phase Eager was a thing, and we wanted to hold our picks. We played against Brazil. I think they were like the Black Dragons.
Was this the spring tournament?
Yeah, it was a spring tournament. And we lost the game to them because we just picked like DJ played like Aphrodite jungle and like I played Nike support. I probably had like 6 total games on Nike in like my life. That is like one of the biggest lessons I learned. Like I'm never doing that again. Like why would I play a god that I have like no experience on really? And like we're just like treating this like, oh, we're gonna win anyway, so we'll just play whatever we want.
Yeah.
So like I remember we lost and Divios was like, no more holding picks. No more holding picks. He's like, we're playing everything and we're winning in 20 minutes. That's what Divios said. And we did that. We won the next 2 games and we won the best of 3. But it was like a really good learning experience to like not like save things. Like it's better just to play things than to not.
Yeah, I mean, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, there's like a few different moments, I think. I think a lot of the early teams, like not any individuals specifically on Fnatic into Obey, but and then like other players too that maybe take themselves or the secrecy of picks a little bit too seriously and don't understand that you can just pick the meta to, like, let's say 2 gods, and it shows people nothing if you just pick the most middle tier god in the game and just run around and try to end the game as fast as possible. And the second thing I was going to say is talking to Mike, I think, was one of the best. I think this was maybe, I don't remember the timeline on it actually. I was going to say before or after we lost to Armada, but the idea of like if you're against like the teams that you're supposed to beat and maybe you have just like more quality or just you're just favored, you're just hotter right now, is just like the idea of speed running as fast as you can. And the shorter the game, the less you're going to give away, the less you have to be there, the more time you're going to have away to talk about the game or whatever you want to do, just free time. And I think, I mean, I never had a like horrible loss because
You're welcome.
We saved picks, but like
we did the SCC set. We did a little bit.
Did we hold picks?
I did. It was really dumb. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't remember the pick and ban for that too well. I
don't either. But I know there was some gods that I think I randomly landed on like. It wasn't Circuit. I played like Fafnir or something, but I wasn't actually playing Fafnir at that tournament. I just like picked it and we just got ran over. Like Gino just invaded everything and just owned us. But yeah,
yeah, and it was like, well, the more and more as we go down, I realize that we should just pick. Though I will say, the one thing I hold on to, kind of as a back note, is that I think you can try stuff that you genuinely think is good and has promise against in the earlier rounds of tournaments against teams that you're supposed to win. And like I remember
I agree with that.
Last year I had this cook with Rat where I'd go 2 support relics on Rat and I'd maybe go Relic Dagger too, but I just build like a bunch of like hybrid items and tank items, and we played it against the 4th SML EU team, and like it was like Daza and a guy called Masskill and Sap7, and they have like fine players, but like we got like owned by them. There's just a Baba Yaga flinging stuff at us, and we're just like getting run down by a set jungle. And that's when I knew. I tried the Rat build in scrims, and it seemed to be pretty good. We'd won some scrims, and then on match day it was just terrible. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna put it in the bin for this tournament and maybe forever. Yeah. Because and I'm glad I did, because I could have played on a important set.
Yeah, I remember the season 5 Worlds. I learned that lesson. But because I wasn't necessarily the one who did it, I didn't really learn the lesson. Like, I learned why it was bad, but I didn't learn how bad it was. And then I remember after we had lost to Armada, I don't know if you remember this, I just blamed myself completely for that set because I was really annoyed. And this was after the talk you had mentioned was after when I was like, if you just stomp a team that you know you can beat and you just like pick all of your best stuff, people will question whether you're even being serious or not, because if you win in 20 minutes, they'll just discard it. They'll just be like, oh, they're just better. Like you won't actually give that much value to it. Like a lot of like some teams will be more serious and do better prep than others, but like there will always be that doubt, you know, like let's say we like 10th picked a god that we really thought was OP. Like if we 10th pick it and then you win in 20 minutes, people aren't going to be like, oh, they think that god's OP. Like they just 10th picked it and they won anyways. And then we could maybe literally first pick at the next like set, the like serious set. And I just think what you guys had mentioned about like, well, I guess Twig specifically had mentioned that, I'm assuming like we all probably have seen that a little bit where like if you're trying something in scrims, getting real game reps on it is so different. Just like literally the pacing of the game, I think for our roles especially matters a lot.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that. Like you brought it up with the rap thing. Like SPL versus scrims is a whole different animal. I feel like
For sure.
like it's like when you talk to people about it, especially like players that are like in the SEC or like players that are trying to like get involved in competitive Smite more, it's like really hard to explain the difference. It'd be really cool to talk to like somebody like Oath maybe, because last year I think he had like a couple games where he subbed in for was it the Scarabs or
maybe
I can't remember.
Scarabs, yeah.
Right.
I can't remember which team he subbed in.
It was right after we had picked up Scream, he had subbed in.
Yeah, he subbed in a couple games, and I feel like this year he's looked great and he's played phenomenal. But like that year, like that's like a perfect example of like someone new coming in, and they're like, okay, he's probably thinking this is way different than ranked, like in even scrims. Like
I wonder what he'd say about that.
Yeah, because it's like a learning curve, and like it's like trial by fire. Like that's the only way to learn. Like you were saying with genetics too. Like at the start, like he was an SML player, and like you said, he had a lot to learn, and like he was a good player even coming into SPL right away. But like he probably had a lot of things where it was like trial by fire that he had to learn just by playing the matches.
He just wasn't half the player as he was over a year later of SPL games, regardless on ping or not. He's just going to know the flow a lot better and what works and what doesn't, and what comms work and what doesn't. And like the whole like run it down, play aggressive, like teams can do it. Like I think on our team we did it pretty well.
You guys were the best.
We did it really well, and
We just absolutely gunned it,
the moment I was not on the team, I thought that was kind of partly my play style, but like the Kings didn't really play like that at all, and I don't know, I can't even point to what exactly changed, but like that's just not that wasn't a thing anymore. And like replicating running it down is like so ridiculously hard. I think it's not in a real match where people aren't making mistakes, they're not just randomly contesting stuff and dying and getting picked. It's like I mean, it's slow, but it's like I feel like it's really tactical a lot of the time.
Yeah, I feel like the run it down, like everybody has to be like I always said this is like if your team's on the same page, like you're a dangerous team, like in Smite 100%. Like it's
100%.
It's the hardest thing to do though, is to get everybody like on the same page, because there's been some teams I felt like that I've gotten everybody on the same page, and like the year we won, I felt like we were all on the same page. Yeah. But even like I'd even say like season 8, like when we made finals against Leviathans, we were close, but we didn't quite get there. I feel like we were like right on the cusp of it, and maybe if we had like another tournament or like a couple more weeks of like scrims or something, we could have got there. And like there's like a lot of times, like season 3 Eager, I felt even though we didn't win, we were all on the same page.
Yeah, but
like it's really weird because once you get there, like you can't explain it. I don't know how to like put it into words, but it just, you know, you're there, like kind of, I don't know the best way to put it.
I feel like it just all clicks and it feels so much more fun as well. Like literally just the way you play in game, I feel like is so different when you actually get to that point.
Like everybody knows what everybody's talking about. Like you'll say something stupid. Like I remember like a term we used to use like in season 5, like we would all say like, if we're losing, we're just gonna go clown at Fire Giant. That was like our saying that we would do.
You were so good
and
at
we
that,
would literally
man.
just all group up as 5 out of base, run to fire, and we would just we're like, this is like what we're gonna do. Like everybody knew like if we could trade kills, great. If we can kill the whole other team, great. We win the game. If we get 1 kill and they get Fire Giant, great. If we don't lose the game, they have 1 less guy with Fire Giant. We didn't lose the game.
Right.
Like we're like our plan. Like everybody knew like in that circumstance that's what we were doing, and no one was gonna back down. And like like that felt good to know that like everybody was like on the same wavelength. Kind of.
The big part of that is that no one has to like spell that out. If that's like the rep or the what people know, and you're like, okay, can we just go to fire and like look for picks or just see like flip it or just something, then and you've done that a couple times already, and your team is truly just like playing together, then it's like it works. It's going to work so much better than if one person's just doing their own thing and no one's playing together and people are just getting picked.
Yeah.
It's like I mean it's a magical thing, isn't it?
And then season 6 Splice was another team where I felt like we were all on the same page for like the most part. Like the second, like when we picked Sot up, I remember.
Plus Scream or?
Yeah, it was Scream. Yeah, we were in a really good spot. That was a year that I felt like it sucks that we lost to PK because I remember game 1 we beat him in like 23 minutes or whatever.
Him, yeah.
And we had such a good strategy going into that Worlds. I remember we scrimmed against you guys and you guys rage quit scrims.
We were so pissed.
Like 8 times. I remember you guys we would do the thing where we'd 5-man go to red. And you guys picked 2 Sunders, Fafnir, Hebo, Neath. You killed me instantly F6 and we're like, and you guys typed in lobby, we're not scrimming you this the rest of the year. you literally killed me and then you guys said that. I was like, okay, whatever. And so you didn't scrim us after that. But like I remember we had a really good strategy and we were really good at like going to fire and like if we pulled it, and I remember if we called to do it, we were doing it. Like everybody was going to commit to doing the fire giant. And it wasn't like, there was no worry of like, if this person is hitting this guy, like everybody knew what they were doing at the fire to get it.
Yeah.
And I felt like we did a really good job on that team. Like Ven and Scream knew what they were going to do. Sot knew what he was going to do. I knew what I was going to do. And Cyclone knew. Like we all just, like it was like communicated, but not communicated. Like it was just known between the players, like going into the objective kind of.
It's kind of funny because you both kind of just like jogged my memory with it a little bit. And what you had said about not knowing how to communicate and knowing when you're on the same page, I think that's exactly it, is that like when you're in comms and maybe a team is struggling or something, there's like always that little bit of hesitation of like, you could have someone who's like the main shot caller or whatever. Like if someone's like, okay, let's go fire, there's sometimes doubt where it's like, okay, well, like, are we committing? Are we burning? Are we like, who needs to zone? Like, who are you going on? And I feel like when you're on the same page, it could be just everyone knows their job, right? Like for me, it was like when we were on E United, if we called go to fire, it never meant that Benji was pulling it or hitting it. We always knew like he was going to go zone. He would go in to like die for it for the rest of us to get it. Like everyone just knew the role they played in the team. And all you had to focus on comms was literally what was happening in the game. And you didn't have to do all the scenarios of like, oh, if this happens, do this. If that happens, do that. Like, it was just so clean. You just make a call, you do a play, you know what you want to do. Or it'd be like, you know, someone finishes an item or like a solo laner finishes upgrading their TPM. We're like, okay, this is the play we're doing. Like, and it's just committed and it's clear and just every comm is so like crisp with that because you can just call targets and it just feels so smooth. It's really funny as well. The I forget what you had said. I wanted to ask about it, and then you kind of said it with the season 6 scrims. Like, I feel like adjusting your play style or getting people to understand it too is so difficult because in our roles, there's so many small decisions I feel like that you have to make. Oh, it was the difference between scrims and SPL. And I don't know how much you remember this, but I'm sure you've had this in scrims, especially those invade metas. Like, there would be so many times I would just tell my team, I'm like, okay, listen, I need to practice. I'm like unironically like limit testing because I need to see like all these different scenarios. Like I need to know how to react like real time to this. And I remember the reason we got so pissed at you guys in season 6 was you guys started invading us at red buff. And I remember the first day after scrims, we played a double block and we were all eating lunch and we were talking about it. And I was like, guys, it's like, we were talking about like, oh, okay, well, should we do a different start? Should we just like flip the map? Should we do this or that or whatever? I'm like, I remember being like, guys, the whole point of the invade meta is to have the support stall the jungler. And I was like, the jungler, all that happened is the jungler moved from their speed to my red. That's all that happened. And I was like, just let me play out the 1v3. It was you, Scream, and I think, was it Cyclone or was it Benji there?
Oh, no, it was
or Sot. I'm sorry, yeah.
It was all 5 of us.
Well, you guys would group
We would
as
walk
5.
in and it would be 4 people. We would have Ven and Sot there because Sot would TP, I think.
That's
and then
right.
Cyclone would do buffs. Yeah,
That's right. I would have Alec there with me, and I remember saying to just let everyone else go farm, and I was like, just let me play the 2v4. Let me see all the scenarios. Like, eventually I'm going to learn my limits and know, like, how much I can do without dying, like that sort of thing. And we would spam F6, and Max and Kenny were like, we're getting 0 practice. This is a waste of time for us. But I'm like, this is so good for me, though. And I remember we scrimmed you guys, like, the next day or something. And whenever I would steal the red buff from you guys and not die, you guys would insta F6, which made sense because in your strategy, you're like, that should never happen because if I walk up, you should just kill me, right? And I remember after that, everybody just raged. Where it's like, this is a waste of time. We're getting nothing out of this. This isn't even gonna happen. And I always thought that stuff was kind of goofy because even like last year's invade meta, like you just have to play out all those scenarios and learn it. And when it happens in scrims, they can devolve really quickly because when you have me trying to learn my limits on a start, and then you have maybe a mid laner or a solo laner learning a new god and like trying to like play out their laning phase 1v1 and they just completely like disregard that again could even come, it just makes the game so sloppy. And I feel like that general flow, it doesn't happen in the SPL because when people pick something in the SPL, for the most part, they know exactly how they're going to play with it. They know their limits. They know how they want to start the game. They know like when they want to fight, when they need to play safe. And I feel like it's just so much like cleaner is like the buzzword for it.
Yeah. I can see that. That wasn't the case for me one of the games this year. The outflash.
Little outflash game.
That was something I brought from ranked that I was liking, and then like it's impossible to emulate like an SPL game.
Yeah,
like,
it
it's
is.
just completely different.
I'm not gonna lie.
speed.
This is maybe weird to say because it's current season. I think you could, if you played that game 10 times, I don't think you ever have a game that looked as bad as that one.
Probably not.
Like I don't think the pick was actually as bad as it looked. I just think you guys got like a nightmare start, and it just like that just happens, you know?
Yeah.
It really does. Oh no, I think the general like I kind of want to get into a little bit more like not even meta and stuff, just mindset, because I feel like I know all three of us have probably had this. It was really interesting hearing you talk about season 3 where you were at one point questioning literally your career path. Like, should you even continue playing? Do you even have a future in it? I feel like we've probably all had that point where whether it be a different team or just highs and lows, you kind of question like, am I good enough anymore? Like, is this really what I want to be doing? All this type of stuff. How have you guys kind of found, I guess, like mental strength there, or sort of just like worked through that? Like, has there been something that works for you guys, whether it be like hobbies or anything like that? Maybe Benny?
I don't know. I feel like, I mean, I think if like even right now, it's maybe like too soon to say, but like the like Kings have just had 3 out of 4 losses the last 4 games. And it's like, I think it's longer than that though. Even when we were winning matches, I don't think we've had a scrim session where we win over 50%. So if we play 3 games, we're going to lose 2 guaranteed at least. And if we scrim 4 games, we're going to win or lose 2. We're going to lose 2 at least every time. And that's been like that for like since the SPL started. And it's like, we kind of meme and joke about it, which is good, but we all feel like something's wrong. And like, I just think it's a slump, right? It just happens. But like, it's easy. I feel like what a lot of people say, and it can be true, is, oh, we just got to play the game. We just got to like slam the game. But
like outside the scrims, you're saying?
Yeah. We got to like, these guys that are winning, they're playing more, they want it more, all this classic stuff that people say. And it's like, sometimes it's not even that. Sometimes you just need to, like yesterday, Harry just said, why don't we just go and like have a drink? Why don't we just go and have a drink? We'll get out of the house. Like, this is like, and for me specifically, my slumps are way more based around my mentality and like my decision making in games and stuff, as opposed to like, I do get better if I like slam the game. If I'm playing like hours and hours of ranked every week, I do get better and I feel it. But what really like destroys my playstyle is my playing is my mental, when I just don't believe in what I'm doing and what I don't believe the team believes in what I'm doing. And like I feel like a lot of the time you just got to, for me it is just kind of just puzzle, leaving the house, or just like playing a game that allows you to like think freely, like just a card game, or just like just something alone that just like lets you think freely about like what to do with more clarity, I guess. I think that's what like gets me out of like a slump, and helps fix my mental, I guess.
Yeah, for me, like this season as well, like we weren't doing that great at the beginning. Like we were 1-4, whatever. what I realized, like I said it the other week, like an OP strat is to get sleep. Like I realized I was going to bed at like 3 and like waking up, or like 4 and like waking up for scrims, because I always try to get up like at least an hour before scrims.
Mm-hmm.
And if we had scrims at 11, I'd wake up at 10. I'd sleep 6 hours. I'm like, I'm just not playing. Like I'm not getting better because I'm not sleeping enough. I felt like, and I remember, like, I think after we lost to the Ravens and we played you guys that week, we were 1-4.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, man, I played bad. Like, that's what I thought, like, after the game. Like, I played so bad. I'm like, I'm going to go to bed early tonight and get a good 8 hours, wake up, like, 2 hours before our set, and I'm going to be ready to go. And, like, I did that.
You could have done that next week. Like, the week after you could have done that. Because now we've lost 5 in a row, so thanks a lot. You know?
Come on, man.
So I did that, and I'm like, okay, I feel good today. Like, and then like I remember I did that the entire week of scrims that week. Like this was like 2 weeks ago, and I remember I was just like I made sure, because like I would like every day, like I'll scrim, and then I play ranked every day because I like playing ranked, like either on my Smurf or just on my main account, or I'll just play Smite even with like some of my friends that I've known for like 20 years, or like just for fun. And like I'll play Smite, I'll do ranked, make food, order food, whatever, do all this stuff, and then like I'll go hang out, I'll play another game, like either like WoW or like Magic, or like I'll do something else, and then I'm like, oh shoot, it's like 3 a.m. and I'm like, okay, this is not good. So like I made sure that I set like enough time like recently, and I've been trying to do this this whole like this past like 3 weeks. Like I've tried to get enough time to where I could sleep, be up 2 hours before we scrim, and then scrim, because it made me feel like I was playing better, even if I wasn't. Maybe it's placebo or whatever.
I don't even think it's placebo. I think it really matters.
But it really helped me a lot, because it helped me more like in communication, like especially like me, like, because I noticed when I'm tired, I don't say as much stuff like in the games. So like when I get enough sleep, like I feel like I communicate better, and it helps like the team play better if I'm communicating more, kind of, if that makes sense.
Oh, it does.
Yeah. So
communication's like one of those things where even if it doesn't help you, I feel like it's your team just play better. You're like, do more of that, please, team. It's like I've started to notice it over the past couple of years. Like especially obviously as a jungler or a support, it's going to be more important than most roles. The more you talk, it's like you're slowly kind of buffing your team.
I feel like it inspires confidence a little bit. Where you're like, your energy is just higher. It's funny, the sleep thing. Do you remember us arguing with Alec about that over the years?
Oh man, I do. And Panda Cat.
Yeah. So when we had played on Rival and we were in that team house, the only people awake every morning were me and Ben. So I would always walk downstairs.
Down, literally.
Yeah. You would either be playing Duel or you'd be playing Magic. Yeah. And then I would normally get on and like play a random ranked game or something like that. We'd each have like coffee. We would have breakfast. We talk about like, oh, what do we want to do in scrims today? Like we were on the same page. We start scrimming. We have energy. And weid have to go like knock on Kenny's door, like
Wild West would wake up a couple minutes later after that.
Everyone else just wakes up. And I remember we had like a slump in scrims, and we brought it up to people, and we're like, guys, we really think everybody should like wake up early, come down, have breakfast, like talk, see each other, like maybe talk about what we want to do, like get to scrims a little bit earlier. And then Alec was like, I think I play better when I'm tired. Like there were nights where he'd literally be on like 4 hours of sleep. There were like 2 troll things Alec did. When we scrimmed in the team house, he would be serious. When he scrimmed in Florida, he would troll his brains out. Like he would die to every gank. He wouldn't take it seriously. Like
I just remember one scrim he played Sobek, griefed the jungler at their backs, followed their jungler to the mid tower and plucked mid, and just died to Paul. I remember Paul killed him, and I just remember that, and I've got that clip on my computer to this day. I don't know why. It's the Rival PCs.
That's awesome.
Like it's so funny, and his like attitude, and I'm pretty sure he was in Florida for that clip, and I just remember his attitude. He was just like, oh, lucky I missed the pluck.
You could like hear the smile.
Like, oh, the choice to pluck at level, like I think it was 1, because he plucked the jungler off the back camps and then followed him, and it wasn't that he chose to pluck, it was that he missed it. That was the problem with that play, and it's just like, this guy is absolutely mental.
There was always that, and then it was in season 7 we had it with Max more because he started streaming a lot, which is fine. Like the streaming's whatever. It was the time slot that they were streaming because they would stream until like 3 or 4 a.m. and then wake up and be so tired. And if we would lose a scrim, and me, Sam, and Ben, we'd always be in the scrim room together. We'd always have had breakfast, talk to each other, do whatever. And we would go through the first scrim and we'd be like, yeah, so what went wrong that game? And it would be silent. And they're just both like so, like, they're so tired. They're so quiet. They don't say a word.
Crickets, man.
Yeah, we're like, yeah, we think everyone should start waking up earlier. He's like, dude, that's a myth. Like, I play better when I'm tired. Like, I'm used to the schedule. So you wouldn't want me to have a different schedule that I'm not used to, right? Like, my body was accustomed to this.
Yeah.
It is so important, though.
The thing is, too, about sleep, what I've noticed, like, you're way more patient when it comes to conversations. Like, you won't, like, you're more likely, like, when you're rested to just kind of take every angle of it when you're not. At least for me, this is
You're like
from
literally
experience.
irritable when you're
Like,
tired.
I'm like, this is what I think. I'm like, I'm not thinking, like, I don't take in consideration like what other people are saying as much when I'm like tired more. And I like, it's funny because I've really noticed that this year more, and I'm like, dang, this is OP. Like, I should keep doing this.
Hey, you can't be giving that away, honestly.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll take a note from that book.
Yeah, have your sleep schedule been bad?
Well, it's the same thing where you just you look at the clock and you realize it's like 2:30, 3, and you're
Yeah.
like, oh god.
Yeah, no, that happens to me all the time. It's like, because I'm doing all these things and I'm like, wait, it's 3. Like, if I'm like, for instance, like, I was like, you play Magic. Do you play Arena?
Yeah,
I was doing like the qualifier thing, and I was queuing for it, and like I qualified for day 2 or whatever of that event, and I did like 3 of them that day, and like those take a while. Like, if the games go long,
sure.
and I was doing it like after scrims. Like, I started like 11, and I did like 2 or 3 of them, and I'm like, it's like 3:34, and I'm like, what happened? like I'm like, this is not good. I have to get up in like 6 hours.
Yeah.
So
I mean, the thing is, I wake up every day, like 10 or before, maybe usually 9:30, regardless, just to take my dog out, and the dog like makes sure I'm awake. Like he'll bap me. So I'm waking up at the same time regardless. So if I don't like go to sleep at the right time, I'm just gonna lose sleep. That's just like the inevitability. And
same with me, honestly.
Honestly, the other thing is like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's a big deal, but once you're in your head about like, oh, I'm slumping, I'm not playing well, I need to fix my sleep. If you're thinking that at like 1 when you like want to be getting to bed, you're not gonna sleep anyway. You're like, your body's not just, you're gonna be in your head, which at least I am a lot. So it's like, I don't know, like being aware that you're in a slump, I feel like doesn't even help that much.
I kind of think that's my worst thing.
Yeah.
Is like I really tend to dwell on things, like whether it's a slump or not. It could just like, it could even just be problem solving. Like, even if you're doing well, if you have like a new patch or a new meta, or like maybe a different team is like giving you troubles in scrims. For whatever reason, like the problem solving part of my brain, it just kicks on whenever I'm just like sitting alone doing nothing. Like, I'm not playing a game. I'm not like, maybe I'm just like, I just finished dinner and I'm just like sitting on the couch or something. And it's like hard for me to undo that sometimes. And I think especially like if I am in a losing streak, which I am right now, like it's really hard, I think, to get off of like, it's not even necessarily like whether you're problem solving or not. It's just the actual like thinking part of it. Like knowing when to cut it to sleep is really important, because I just always do like my best thinking at night. Like Cherry used to give me crap for it because there was the invade meta last year. The first day I did it, I was like, yeah, I think this is good. And then Cherry's like, you're gonna need to explain this to me why it's good. I'm not exaggerating. I literally stayed up until 6 a.m. that night, and I made a spreadsheet and I timed all the gods on the invades for him. And I was like, if they do this, I want to do that. They blah, 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 blah. I had like all these scenarios written out, and I gave it to Cherry and I was like, hey, just read this before scripts. And he had woken up. He was already up because he's in Egypt. So he literally woke up and I sent it to him, and he was like, what the hell is wrong with you? Go to bed. And I was like, yes. I was like, yeah, scrims are cooked. And it was so funny because I woke up, I come to scrims, I'm like, yeah, guys, I want to try doing all this invade stuff. I think it could be good. I inted so hard that block. I've never come to scrims with an idea and had it go that horribly the first day I did it. I'm like, you got to trust me. It's good. I'm just tired. But it really does matter a lot. It's huge.
Yeah. It's crazy to me though. Like, I don't know what it is, but like, I've never noticed it until this year. I don't know why. Like, cause I've always had like a weird schedule. Cause I'm always playing a lot of Smite. I'm always like, that's like one of the things I do every day. And then either like, I remember season 6, I remember I was like cooking a lot and like going to the gym, and mainly because I didn't have another game that I liked playing other than Smite. And then like I remember like last year, I remember Lost Ark came out. I was playing a lot of Lost Ark, but I was also playing ranked, and then I was also scrimming, and then I was raiding in that game, and then I was also playing classic WoW still, and I was raiding classic WoW. So I was like, so I would like, I remember one day I would wake up before scrims. I would this is when we had double blocks. I'd wake up before scrims last year. This was like in the first split of last year too. I would do my Lost Ark dailies. I would scrim. Then I would get, it would be in between the other block of scrims. I would finish whatever I didn't do in Lost Ark. Then I would scrim again. And then I would raid in Classic WoW. And then I would do that. And then I would go do something in Lost Ark to finish whatever else I didn't do that day. And then after that, I'd be like, okay, it's time to hit a rank queue. And then I hit a rank queue at like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. and be like, oh my God, and then I like, what am I doing? I got to get up again. And then I would like get up in the morning. I'm like, do it all over again for like months and months straight. I'm like, how did I live like that for so long without noticing that? That is
You're
not
just on
great.
the grind, man.
Yeah.
On the grind. You don't know anything else.
It's crazy. But this year, like, I've really noticed it. I guess it's just because there's nothing out right now, but Diablo 4 is coming out next month. So I'll definitely play that. But it's funny because usually when new games come out that I like playing, it has never really affected like my Smite performance. I remember season 5 WoW came out, and season 3 WoW expansion came out, and I feel like those were like some of my best years. And I remember I was playing a lot of WoW then and a lot of Smite. But it's like, it's weird because I feel like there's only so much time in a day. I can't do everything, and like I definitely should be healthier, like walking more and doing more stuff like that. And like that's the one thing I try to do is walk every day, but I've been bad with like other things exercise wise. Like all I do is walk mainly, and I try to walk like once or twice a day.
Yeah, I mean, it's all connected, like your
Yeah.
physical health, mental health, like performance in game or whatever you're doing. It's all connected.
It is kind of just a hack for, I think, all competitors to do exercise and sleep well. I think that's like,
Yeah.
you can, that's like your shortcut to like, I think, doing well in any sport or any activity kind of.
Unironically, I think from talking to Lass and some other people, I kind of think that's part of the reason the Warriors have done so well. I don't know how much you guys know them, but I know Jake used to have, I think he talked about it with us, like he used to have a really bad sleep schedule, and I think he's been like waking up before scrims, he goes to the gym in the morning, like he gets like good sleep every single night. I know Sot's been going to the gym every day as well. Like it changes.
I don't know if Sot's been getting good sleep.
Oh no. Well,
maybe, but I don't know. We'll see
Sot's
about that.
definitely not getting good sleep, but he's
I don't
going
know
to the
how
gym.
he is the biggest grinder. Like I give him so much credit,
It's
but
crazy.
at the same time, I feel like it's so bad for his health.
It's
sometimes.
gotta be bad, but also respect to him.
It's crazy respect. Like I don't know how he puts like right now he's doing a thing where he streams like 10 to 12 hours.
Yeah,
right
he
now.
did that last year too.
He did it more. I think it was like 16 hours or something.
He hit
crazy
300
like that.
hours in multiple months. Like that's crazy.
I mean, that guy is nuts. I mean, I think
He's
it's
so good
a
too.
similar thing with like Hadix, even like Zap to some extent. It's like I don't know how they do it.
I don't know how. That's the craziest one because Zap, like Hadix and Sot are like newer players, but
Yeah.
Zap's been doing this since season 0.
Yeah, I mean,
Like I have so much respect for that because like I feel like before Sot and Hadix, who has had success at a high level, I guess Panic Hat and Final K as well are brought into that, but
You're saying like streaming a lot.
they're recent, like with like having like a really big stream schedule and like
Maybe
consistently
Kenneth
streaming.
back in the day. Kenneth used to stream a lot,
Did he
right?
stream a ton?
On
back
Energy?
then?
Yeah, well,
I feel like he did spurts.
he was weird. Yeah, he does spurts and he kind of streams at kind of random
Oh,
times.
like it's not like a strict schedule thing.
thing
yeah.
is like with Kenneth, I think he knows it himself, but like he talks all the time about how he just like burns himself out all the time. But I don't think Sot, Hadix, or even Steve have that.
Yeah, Zap
As
doesn't.
much.
Steve doesn't have that at all. It's crazy because like I don't know what it is with him. He just can do it.
There's definitely a certain level of being able to switch off, because you can't just like go 100% on Smite for like 10 hours straight. Like the best like tennis players in the world, football players, English football, soccer, they're not playing their game for like, let's say 60 hours a week.
Yeah, you can't.
You can't be the best and do that. You need days off. You need time off. You can only like be full on the mental. Like I even think like a lot of teams have kind of done away with double scrims because they favor one really productive scrim session or more productive scrim session than kind of like coasting through two, which is like, I mean, and people would rather scrim one session and then play ranked and like still think about the game, but like head down a little bit more. Like when you like Sop, for example, he does run it down, which is like, I think a great way of like being able to do more, like 10 hours, let's say, of playing, because you can't just like focus on every individual part of the map and every micro play and play for that long. It's got to be unhealthy.
You got to entertain yourself like too, like, while you're doing it. I feel like he does a good job. Like he has fun when he plays, so I feel like that's why he's able to do it so much.
Definitely, I'm kind of jealous of being able to like have that much fun with it.
I feel like Steve, to extend too, like he has fun when he plays too. Like
I don't know.
I think he does. Like he's funny. Like I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but like when he gets like I turned his stream on yesterday and like he cleared his wave while a jungler was hitting him and then he killed them and he's like, this guy is so bad. I was even looking at, like, he says, like, I feel like he gets, like, into, like, it's random. Like, he'll have, like, a couple games where maybe it doesn't look like he's having fun. And then one game, like, it's like he's like that. But then, like, something happens in that game. And then he's just having, like, a really good time in that game. I don't know how to explain it.
It sounds offensive, but I think Steve's actually really good at turning his brain off. Like, some people will say, like, they don't care about ranked or, like, oh, like, yeah, I don't really care about, but like,
I care too much about ranked when I play.
Dude, Steve, like, I swear he's so unfazed by anything. Like he just doesn't care. Like he's just like practicing. He's like playing his like lane. He's playing his mechanics. He gets ganked. He's like, yeah, that guy sucks. Whatever. And he's just like, go next. You know,
I'm better, but they won.
Yeah, it's really impressive, honestly. Do you guys think that I actually wanted to ask you about this a little bit, like, because you had mentioned playing with your friends, Aror. Do you guys think different game modes or just playing the game, I don't want to say like mindlessly, but like you said, you can't focus on every single microplay, and especially when it comes to comp, like the game just flows different, people play the map differently, like all that other stuff. Like I've personally found that duel or even just ranked, like off-rolling, like a change of perspective, I feel like it helps me understand the whole game a lot more. Do you guys have either of those things, or maybe duel specifically for you?
Yeah, well, I'd start with like off-rolling and ranked is like, I feel like I never get bored of off-rolling because I feel like I played a couple support games this year in ranked. Just one, because I'm forced to if, I have to fill or whatever, but two, because it's like, you really like, it's a different game than any other role, I think, including solo. It's like really and you like learn your spikes with like the stacking items and stuff, and like you learn how important your relics really are, and you learn like what it's good to feel good with, like when your carry is like doing stuff and playing with you versus when your carry's just inting by himself
or farming
or farming while you're just dying. That's like the most frustrating thing. You're just getting chased around by 3 people,
or the worst
thing, your carry's just like, I got the wave,
is when they don't farm and you're like doing something and like it's like your hunter, like you're around pyro and like you're making a play and like you get out, but they are rotating to this fight from dual lane the entire time, and you're like, and their hunter's there, and I'm like, just farm there, you get so far ahead, and like you're rotating, and like, oh, I hate that so much.
I think playing other roles really, for me, like mid lane specifically, because when I go to mid, I'm just like, I just want to kill everybody. Like I see their mid laner, I want to kill that guy. I see their support, I'm like, I definitely want to kill that guy. I see their jungler, I'm like, I'm tired this guy even exists, I want him dead. And when you play mid off roll, for me, I realize like how bad it feels to not be able to play around your power spikes. And I understand why, like, it's like a meme, like the Shintos of the world, they just like power farm forever, because when your flow gets disrupted, like it's such a big deal. Like if you die to a soul laner in a bad fight and then they're actually ahead of you, like your game's kind of ruined. Like it changes the flow of it so much. I think off-rolling is really valuable. We actually, I don't know if I should say it or not, I don't think it matters. on Monday, we had asked a team if they were okay with us role swapping in scrims. And last night I just swapped. I played jungle and he played support. And Dardas and I died every single lane at level 3 because I just don't know the jungle laning phase. Like I died every single game. Well, it wasn't even like, I think in 2 of them I died and in 1 of them he died and he was like, oh yeah, I just need you to do this here. And I'm like, I can't believe you just die in a combo like that. Like the jungler just blinked on him and soloed him. I'm like, you really just die like just like that? And Dardas like, yeah, of course, man. What do you mean? And like in duo, it's just not like that, you know, because we're just supports and stuff.
Well, the other thing is season 10, the shards. It's like a whole learning curve with knowing how easy you are. You just pop like a pimple.
Yeah.
If you just get double sharded on in mid, for example, or in anywhere you go, you can just get.
That's what happened to me.
Oh, what the?
I just hit my elbow down. I've done that so many times. I just put my elbow down. That's
the amount of times I've ganked solo and have their solo laner pop wing shard and just club me to death.
Yeah.
As a jungler, and it's just like, okay.
That's what I died to in one of them. We won wave pressure and I didn't see that the mid laner horn sharded, and then he just used another ability on me. Like in duo, like I'll trade my HP for wave pressure, and he just horn sharded me and killed me. And I was like, oh, I actually didn't know he had would just have that. Like I just wasn't used to the cooldowns. But it was really interesting because the whole reason of us role swapping in script, I think everyone else hated it. Like the side laners absolutely hated it. But I learned so much from that set of scrims because I just got to feel because like I can play jungle in ranked, but it's different. Like I'll do it for fun. Like the last couple days I've been playing like TP Thor in ranked and just ganking everybody off cooldown. Like that's not real. Like that's not comp Smite. But feeling the actual flow of it from a jungler's perspective, it completely changes the way I communicate now with Last, like in the middle of the game of like when I think he's like strong to fight, when I want to call him over to duo, or when I want to tell him like, no, we'll farm, do your own thing. Like just having that understanding of roles, I think is actually really important to just like understand each other, and you don't even have to like argue about it or talk about it. You can just show people. Yeah. He also did the same thing with my role, and he was like, oh my god, duo lane is so boring. He's like, I don't think it's boring.
I think it's fun.
I think it's fun too, but I think the difference is like in mid, like Ben was saying, like they can just die.
Yeah.
And for us, it's normally like the supports kind of like fighting each other for pressure and
Someone
stuff.
has to make a mistake in duo lane for death to happen in a 2v2.
It's like more slow paced, like pot advantage and stuff.
Yeah,
and like
exactly.
Sustain advantage, and then if your ADC has pot advantage versus, you know, whether you have pot advantage and how aggressive your ADC can be. I feel like there's so much like
it's also
strategic.
It's so much more like small, like
I feel like fundamentals plays a bigger role in dual lane than it does in mid kind of right now, just because like you said with the shard thing, maybe it'd be more of the same. Like
you'll get punked out 5 times in mid, and I feel like it's hard to learn from it sometimes. You just got punked out by a wing shard, you know?
Yeah, because like fundamentals, what I mean is like basic Smite 101, like in any lane.
Like when it hit the creeps.
You want to clear the wave before you fight the player. Like,
right, yeah.
Like majority of the time, but right now in mid, it's not like that. You can just die.
Yeah.
Like,
it's like fun though, because the team with pressure can sometimes die. Like the team that can clear better can just die if you play it right. Especially like with like gods that don't have their dash yet or their flicker or whatever. Like they can just die even though they outclear you, and it's like weird to think about.
Yeah, I think in your set, Snoopy died as Merlin. I remember watching to Laz. He just literally blinked on his neb, and he just one shot him, and he dove him under tower, double dashed him, hit him, and then dashed out, and he was like fine. And, like that's crazy. I feel like especially with bastions, how hard a tower can shoot you early game, and you're able to do that. Like that just shows how much damage can happen like in a second.
I feel like in
early game
in duo, I really enjoy it because kind of what you said about the pod advantage, like. Also, from a support perspective, I think something that a lot of players who maybe haven't played as many metas, like you probably feel it in jungle, like the difference between your health as like an assassin versus a warrior versus a mage. In duo, I really notice it like when you play a mage support versus playing like a guardian or a warrior, like the amount of tankiness you are like in the early game, like how many autos I can tank from their hunter for wave pressure, like all that sort of stuff, it changes so much. And I think it's really hard to explain that stuff to people, I feel like, and it like the overall game knowledge I actually think is something that I probably slacked behind like season 8, for example, like when the map changed and stuff. Like until patch 9.5, I didn't really play the game as much as I used to. Like I still played it, but I wasn't like grinding. And then when patch 9.5 happened, I felt like I had to like relearn the laning phase. It was actually really fun, honestly, for duo at least.
Yeah, that imagine not without 9.5 right now, how crazy the game would
Insta-dead.
be.
Everyone's insta-dead.
That would be crazy just to see how fast people would die in mid. Oh my god.
Shards brought it back to like pre 9.5, I think. Like the amount of times that there's just been a death that, I mean, I don't even think the player dying is like messing up that bad, but they're just like dead. And especially if your teammate isn't like perfect. If you're not, I think that's why Penny and Paycon do so well, because like they just do things perfectly together. Like they really have a plan together, and it's like, well, I feel like, and I mean, going back to what you were saying, it just helps to know the different like limitations of the roles, because you learn. I feel like you learn a lot. From just playing other roles.
Yeah, you know who I see off roll all the time is Yark in ranked. He loves to off roll.
So good at it.
He's crazy. He'll go on like sprees.
He loves to slam the other role and just pick like one of the best gods in that role and just be like, why? Why is this so good? And he's like, oh, it felt really good. You know, and he is just so unique and versatile for that. He just loves to do it.
Vote likes to do the same thing, but in a different way. Like he'll just be like, Mike, why aren't you playing this god? It's so OP. And then we'll end the block. And then he'll be like, look, I'll show you. And he'll go play it in support. He either drops a complete stinker or he actually gives me a good idea. He's like, yeah, I think like you could build this item more, or like you could try this or that. And I think it's really fun to have people do that. I think there was definitely a stage in probably everybody's career where you get like a sense of like pride or ego or like a little stuck in your ways. And I think learning how to, you had kind of talked about earlier, like how to kind of like take criticism or take ideas and not be defensive about it, I feel like is really important.
I feel like that's a really good quality to like have, is to take other people's ideas but not not get defensive. It's really hard to do those sometimes.
So hard, especially if other people's ideas are, hey, just do what this guy in another team is doing.
Exactly. And then like they press it, you know what I mean? Like they keep they don't say it exactly, but they'll like,
but they're like,
lead you
so
to this like
right
they'll like go through like a maze and lead you to the point.
Yeah. Like I feel like this character is just winning every game. but I guess we just don't play it. It's like, oh, okay.
Oh yeah.
I guess
this character
we just don't play it.
I just think we need to be better against this god.
I hate that we don't do that. That's so funny.
Oh man.
Yeah, Lass and I will argue all the time about, I think it's probably common. Do you ever argue with your teammates over Cloak or Thebes?
Not really, actually.
Dude, Lass loves arguing with me over Cloak or Thebes, and like to his credit, like he makes me think about it more, which is good, because I can definitely be very, I think everyone kind of can, like when you're confident in something, you're kind of like stubbornly confident. Like if you like reach a conclusion, you think a lot about it, or like a play style, or like if you know what you're good at, you like kind of know why you think it's good. And like being questioned on that, like on some end you can get defensive or annoyed, but I think it's also good to like be questioned about it and have to explain like why you think something's good, the way you want to play with it, like the way you think it works, all that type of stuff.
That just reminded me of something. I feel like I don't know if you've ever had this like on any of your teams, but I've experienced this. I'm not going to name any names, but like a good thing, a really, really good thing and really important for a team to be successful is I feel like people have to disagree on things.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like I've ran into people where I talk to them at the beginning of the year and they agree with everything I say. Mm-hmm. And
it's not good.
I learned my lesson that's a red flag instantly.
Yeah.
Like,
well,
they should agree
on some things.
Exactly. Yeah. Like they should agree on some things, and like you can tell, like you don't want to be like, yeah, everything you say is stupid. Like you don't want that, but like there needs to be some things that you say that are like, I don't know how to put into words, but like there's just a thing like where if you got to just be careful when you're trying to team with somebody, I guess, and like they're kind of agreeing with everything you say without really giving their own input on it, and they're just like yeah.
Almost, especially for like, let's say younger players, because we could all consider ourselves older players now. You don't want to have a younger player that's like, oh, okay, 100% of what you say is I'm just going to do it and follow it without question.
Yeah.
It's like that as you said, it's a red flag because you want them to be doing their own thing, and you want them to be sure of and confident that they can say you're wrong, I'm right. I've been doing this longer. I'm better at this. I'm like, let's say my main is ADC. I know I can't do that. I'm not going to do what you're telling me because I disagree and I know.
Yeah, you want to have a discussion, argument, whatever you want to call it. Like, you want to have like a conversation in that direction where they're like, no, this is what's good. And then you're like, no, this, and then like, you could either agree or disagree, but you could come to a conclusion like as like at the end of it, and then like even if you still don't agree with the person, you respect that they think like that at least, and they have their own thought process. Because if they don't have their own thought process, or at least if they don't have their own thought process, it's like impossible to like make improvements and like become better as a team. I feel like overall, because if they're just like is like a gecko, like they just like meld into like whatever you're saying, like like you're never gonna get better. Like they need to have their own opinions.
I actually really respected that about like most of the new players I played with. Like Pegon did that last year when we were like, he would say like, he kind of worded it like troll so that he like wasn't judged, it kind of felt like, but there'd be some scrims where he was like, I think I could play Susano and it'd be really good, and Sam and I would be like, are you just like saying that all the time because you're like kind of trolling, you just want to play it in scrims for fun, or like do you really think it? And he was like, no, I really think it, I just don't know what you guys think about it. And we're just like, yeah, just like do your thing, like show us. And he like played Susano in the SPL and just like would solo people, and like it led to discussions. Like for me, the most important thing with all my teammates, it's not actually like, I think I used to, especially when I was younger, I think I cared a lot about like being respected or being right. And then once I kind of got past that, like early in my career, I think it was at a stage kind of like you were talking about where I wasn't sure if I like was able to play in the SPL. I wasn't sure if I was like good enough. Like, is this even like cut out for me? That type of stuff. Once I got past that initial phase, the most important thing wasn't, am I right? Am I wrong? It was just, I just want to know how everybody thinks. Like, I just want to know how everybody works. Like, it's not like the conclusions, it's like the thought process. Because if I know how somebody thinks, I can use that for my own playstyle. If somebody's like, yeah, just pick Fafnir because it's safe and it's OP, and I'm going to play Jingwei because it's safe and it's OP, like we'll just win because they're safe and they're OP. That doesn't mean anything to me. It's like, how are you going to play the map with it? How are you going to get to the point where you can like do objectives? How are we playing team fights? Like all this other stuff is so important. And I feel like just hearing each other out on that is really hard too, because some people just communicate differently. Like I think I'm pretty decent with like explaining my thoughts, but someone like
terrible.
You play Scream,
really
Scream for example. Scream is not great at like explaining his thoughts, in my opinion, or at least younger in his career. Scream was not good at explaining his thoughts, and he just needed to show you. Whereas when I played with him last year, he was much better at it, and it neither is good or bad or right or wrong. It's just like you just have to know how to communicate with people sometimes.
And that's where I feel like that's another thing, like with like coaching, like when I had Kabam as my coach, like I feel like that was like another like learning period for me, like because I had well, season 3, like back when I was on Eager, and like season 2 when I was on COG with like Pern and Best, like I was number 1, I was really good friends with Best, like pretty much like pretty fast, I feel like. And I was also pretty good friends with Pern, but I was like one of the younger players on the team, so I kind of had, it was like easier to like maybe like I don't know how to explain it, but like talk about some things. But like as I became like one of the older players on the team, and there wasn't really anyone for me to like talk to besides like when I had Kabam like as a coach, it was Kabam. So like when I lost him as a coach and I moved on after that season, it was really hard for me to get some of my ideas through to the rest of the team without like someone else to run them past first and like have a conversation about it, like, and how to like display it like to the team so it's like fair to everybody else. Yeah, that makes sense. But
yeah. Well, I was gonna say, I think a lot of my success over the last 4 years now has been because Mike and Genetics, the one thing, they're very different people, but the one thing that they were super similar about with me was that we disagree on cooldown, basically on so many fundamentals, because we're just the 2 roaming classes. So we have to we have to play together. There's no avoiding it. I mean, technically we could 2-1-2 and we'd still have to like agree on so many things. You know, I could play dual lane with Variety, and he could play duo, and we'd still have to agree on so much. Like, what do we do when the jungle and support both gank? You know, and they're overloading us, and we'd still have to figure out, even if we're not together. But you know, especially if we're together, and I feel like that's been such a big part of why those teams were good, is that we're disagreeing on so much that both of us, the truth is somewhere in the middle, but we're kind of pulling each other somewhere closer. Well, not further apart, at least, from the truth, or like the right thing, or whatever. And I mean, I think Fine OK too. I wish he would be more, what's the word?
Assertive?
Not assertive, just like more willing to disagree.
Oh, okay.
Because I thought like he was really smart with a lot of stuff, and you know, even like Pandacat and Netroid and Jarkor, they're really like, they have their own opinion, but like they need to be more. Well, a lot of players just need to understand that it's fine to disagree and be. Just like
it's better.
Yeah, it's better.
I think in the long run, for sure.
It's better to have a little fight now than kind of just shrug and like play, like do their own thing and being like, that guy's, you know, he doesn't know. And it's like, well, how about we just disagree for a bit and then pull each other somewhere closer to the right middle.
I feel like that's what you see a lot with like the lower teams, like over the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's really hard for them. Like a lot of it is probably that they want to just look good, so like they don't look bad because their team's already doing bad. But at the same time, like they're not having like these important conversations about the game. And when they do, they all just kind of like agree on it, and they just try to do something because nothing's working for them.
Yeah, like force an agreement.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Like it's gonna fix a problem, but the problem is that they're not fighting.
Yeah, you have to people hate the word fighting sometimes, but like that's what it is. Like you have to fight for your opinion.
Yeah.
And like whether your team likes it or not, it's gonna be better. Like it's like everybody wants to win. No one's trying to do anything malicious, at least to your own team. Like
95% of the time, 99%.
Yeah.
Of the time.
Yeah, 99% of the time, no one's doing anything malicious to hurt your own team.
Mm-hmm.
So like when you're having like these like discussions and like disagreements and arguments or fights or whatever you want to phrase it as, like you have to realize it's for the betterment of the team. And that's how, like for me, that's how I've gotten better over the years. Like I feel like if I don't do that, I don't improve. And if I don't improve, I'm done. Like goodbye. That's why I feel like
it's so funny that you mentioned that, because I feel like along those lines as well, knowing how to argue with different players I think is important. Something I really learned at the start of this year was like, this is the first year where I've played with teammates, like 4 different teammates I've never played with before, because I'd played with Pandacat for so long.
That's crazy, by the way.
Yeah, it really is. Like, the way I would criticize or argue with Pandacat was so different than how I would criticize or argue with, like, Sam, for example. Like, it's not even, like, I think you kind of can't be scared of confrontation if you're a competitive player. Like, you kind of have to embrace that to some regard. But this year, like, I've really struggled kind of being timid a little bit, not like because I'm afraid of like criticizing people, but I don't know how they'll take it. And I've learned a lot more about like how Vote, Dardes, Lasper, and Nika, like how I can get ideas across to each one of them. Like some conversations, like Dardes, for example, something I've learned is like these arguments where like, you know, sometimes people can get like loud or like you kind of like shout over each other if you get really annoyed. Like that'll never happen with Dardes. Like if I ever like raise my voice because I'm just like frustrated in the moment, he'll never respond to that. But like I could argue with Lass that way all day. Like Lass will, you know, like Lass and I just like talking. We just like arguing. So it'll just work. Like
I love that.
Yeah, it'll just happen. Every jungler I've ever had, Lass, Scream, Sam, Twig, like whoever it is, I love arguing with them for some reason. Like, and I feel like they all love I learned so much from each one of them, like how different they are. And I think it's not like, it kind of comes back to that thing I was saying at the start. Like language barrier probably isn't the best thing, but learning how to communicate with people, I think is really, really important. And learning how to like bring that out. Cause you had said like, as long as everyone's on the same, like everyone just wants to win. And everyone should just feel like you have each other's back. And I try to preface it so many times where like, we we were pissed this weekend because we just keep losing games we feel like we should win. I'm like, guys, I'm gonna preface this with like, I want everybody to think that like I have trust in everyone. I think like everyone's good, all this type of stuff. But like seriously, what the hell are you doing here? Like just just trying to get to this. Like guys, like we have this play. Like why don't we just like run it down? Why don't we just do this or that? And it's like it's so hard because some people just take it differently. I feel like, and I don't want if you phrase something wrong. It was kind of like the argument about like being defensive. If you phrase it wrong to somebody and they shut down, you can never make progress ever with that. Like you want people to like fight back on it.
Yeah. Like that's the hardest thing because if you say one wrong thing sometimes, then it's like people just always think back to that moment or something.
Yeah.
And it just kind of makes everything feel worse. Like when you're having a conversation about something that you want to improve on.
Yeah. And I think everybody will make mistakes with it too. Like I've definitely had plenty of arguments or debates where I've like gone over the line or like said something that like was probably like too matter of fact or like I like made the joke about Scream just saying like, yeah, you guys are all playing like crap. Like there's some truth in it. Like if you're dying to every gank, you're probably doing something wrong, you know? Like,
yeah.
So, but it's the way you portray it is important.
One thing I wanted to talk about too is I have a bunch of friends that I know it's not common, I guess, but I have a bunch of friends that I've grown up with. I've known them for like over 20 years and like I'll play Smite with them. And like we'll talk about things and it always makes me laugh because like I've been doing this for 10 years, 10 plus years, like we were saying earlier. And it's so different than like the real world jobs. Like,
yeah, like
these conversations we're having, like if you work at like a McDonald's, like this, you're not going to be arguing how to make burgers faster than the other person. So it's like
rotation make no sense.
Exactly. So it's like really hard to relate. Like when I'm like talking to them, when they ask me about certain things, you're like, how is this going? And like, and they'll be like, that's interesting. I'm like, yeah, it is. Like when I look at it from the outside looking in, like it really is. It's weird. Like it's definitely something that isn't common, like way of living and like treating things. So I feel like it's nice to talk to people that have like the same experiences as me with it. But like, do you guys have any friends that you've talked to for a while and then you talk to them about Smite and they're like, what are you talking about? Have you ever had like a weird conversation with either like a family member, friend, or like something like that?
I don't really have any like close friends that don't know like Smite that I talk to like that. But like my parents, like they have this like keen like thirst for trying to like figure out like what like the ins and outs of being a pro is. So they'll ask me, oh, what? So why did you do this? Or why did you do that? And it's like, oh man, let's not open that can of worms.
Yeah,
like,
my mom always tells me like, why'd you do this? I'm like, you don't even know what's going on. Like, how am I supposed to explain it to you?
I was like, why didn't you just play back? You know, stuff like that. It's like, I died 9 times. Like, how many times do I have to play back to not die 9 times in a row? And it's like, well, it's just so funny because the end result, you want their Titan dead and your Titan alive. That's the end result of any game. That's just the fundamental. And sometimes you think that you dying is actually more beneficial to get their Titan dead than you living and just playing back and scared. And it's like, but the ins and outs of like how a team dynamic works, like it's so insane. Like we like literally just like 40 players playing a made up game that has so many, like every item matters, every rotation, every like buff camp, this stealing sides on a buff camp,
even like when
matter.
Even like the timing of when you back, like small stuff like that, it matters so much.
It's impossible even to explain it to a casual player, never mind who knows the game, never mind like someone who doesn't know Smite.
Yeah, those are like my friends. They all play the game really casually. Like they play, but like they don't understand the nuances of the game. So it's like impossible to like. And they're always like, how do you know what to build like on every god and like what to do here and like all this stuff? And they're always like, oh my god, what the heck?
Have you guys ever scrimmed and had like an argument during scrims and had like a family member or something, someone who's not involved in the scrims, like in your house who hears it, who brings it up to you?
Oh, well, Zoe will bring, like, not gonna lie, King's scrims can get heated. So it's like Zoe can sometimes tell if I come downstairs. Like, she's like, rough scrim session, huh? And just something like that. And I'll be like, I don't want to talk about it.
That's the only example I had to answer your question is my girlfriend, Leah. There's been so many times where I've argued in scrims and I'll finish and she'll be like, that sounded horrible. Like, are you okay? I'm like, and I'm like, that's the best scrim we've had in weeks. I was like, that was honestly a great session. We learned so much. She's like, what are you talking about? You were yelling for like 10 minutes. I was like, we got so much accomplished. That was awesome. And she's like, yeah, you're a psychopath.
That's like the best way to put it though, is like, I feel like my friends haven't seen it in person, but if they would, that's probably what they'd say. They'd be like, that was good. And you'd be like, yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
I always talk about how my favorite thing in the world would be to be like a fly on the wall for every team scrim session. I'd love to just be like the coach for the day, sit in comms specifically, just hear what they're saying during a game. Like, oh, how do the Ravens like play? I just love, because you'd learn all these different personalities, how the dynamics work, and like how they play in game. Who's like kind of trolling, who's running it down, who's really trying to learn. And like I just think it would be my favorite thing to just go through all eight SPL teams and just listen to the dynamic. I mean, including my own. I wish I recorded my own and like heard it back and see like kind of what I brought, you know, because I still don't know.
Wait, do you guys not do that?
I don't do it.
I do it sometimes.
I have literally every single like scrim block since like season 4 or something.
You
like
have
that.
it saved?
All of them. Yeah, I have them.
That's awesome. I'm jealous of that, actually.
A
That's
hack
crazy
for
cool.
every single pro player. If you have to remember to swap your stream key, okay? If you stream on Twitch, this could be a problem. If you go on YouTube and you make it an unlisted stream.
That's where I have mine at. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, because for example, I upload on YouTube, right? It'll have your normal uploads, and then it'll have a live tab, and it's all my scrims just unlisted, so they're just in there. I think it's actually so OP because you can go like hear back comms, you can go like look at what you were thinking in the moment. It's so good, I think, for that. And wait, what was the initial thing with this? It was you had said something. Something jogged my memory. Oh my gosh, my train of thought. I hate this, dude. This has been happening to one of us every single episode.
It usually happens to me every episode. This is the first time it happened.
Oh my god, man.
I was talking about. What was it like when I was disagreeing in scrims or like raising voices?
It was after that. It was after
the good scrim talk where like your girlfriend.
Yeah, it was after you had mentioned something about Zoe, about it being like a good scrim block.
I'd say it, like I don't want to talk about it sometimes.
Yeah, I think. Oh my gosh, I lost it. I just think like the thing about recording scrims that I was gonna say was something along these lines is just that like. When I go hear some stuff back, especially if it's months before, I feel like I sound so stupid. But in the moment, I feel like all those discussions actually do lead to so much. And I feel like it was about being a fly on the wall and listening to different teams. I think it's really cool, I think, to know how different teams function. I actually did it the other year. I was like streaming back Worlds or something. It got into the idea of like shot calling or something. And I had like polled my chat on like, who do you think is the shot caller on each team? Because I know for you guys, like Spin is like a pretty big voice, like late game, right?
Well, it was like when we won, it was Sino and Spin.
Yeah.
But the thing is that we could do a whole episode on this actually. Like, the definition of shot caller to the casual, to the pro,
so different,
to this pro, that pro. Like a lot of people's definition of it, like even between us, it's probably different. So it just depends on what you think.
Yeah, I've always hated the idea of like the single person is just like calling everything and min-maxing, like micromanaging everybody. And I just like, I used to hate that so much.
There is no like dictator like that. No one does that.
Yeah, that'd be way too hard. And if someone did that, they wouldn't be a good team either.
No, it wouldn't. Because, you know what? It was. Do you remember? It was on your team. It was Pern. Had an interview. It was like season 3 regionals, and he was talking. It was like this idea that him and like Payne are like the shot callers of NA, and they like micromanage all this stuff. And he was like, "No, that's stupid. Like this isn't League. I can't like click over to top lane and see everything that's going on. I can't click over to duo and see everything that's going on. Like I need people to talk about like who's strong in your lane, what's happening, when are they backing, when are the buffs up, like do you think I can kill them if I go gank? Like, can we do an objective if I get you pressure? Like all this small stuff. And I think like being a fly on the wall for scrims, you really kind of learn like who gives that information for teams and who really does that. I thought that was something that Alec was always so good at. Like I always felt like I was on the opposite side of the map of him at every game, and I always knew, like I always had a general feeling of how his lane was going, like every single game. It was never a question like if I was calling him over like, hey, do you want to fight gold or something? It was never a question. I was just like, yeah, I know like when he wants to fight. Like, it was just clear.
For sure.
It was really good.
It would be really, you know, who gets to do that kind of, which is funny, is like if against Kabam.
Yes, man.
With the admin work, I feel like that's like probably the coolest thing about doing something like that is like him and Vinny get to see how all the teams are like during the game.
And get to see them like get annoyed when they lose a game too. Yeah. It's so cool, I think.
Yeah, I feel he said it's really weird though. Like,
yeah,
I would be weird for me as well, but it'd be interesting for sure.
Yeah, I wonder like whether it like biases his like opinions on like teams or individuals.
It has to, right?
Like obviously it has to. But it's like I know the Kings aren't pleased about losing when we're losing. Like I bet it wasn't like
I don't think any team is.
Yeah, but like if someone was like truly listening to what we were saying in like the losses last weekend, it's like, oh man, this is like miserable. Like this is miserable. It's like no one's pleased. Like there's this like level of just like anger, you know, and it's like, well, and then it's like fine after.
I want to say one more thing about that is that it's good to be like that. I feel like if your team isn't like that when you lose, that's really bad because it shows like in a bad way. It shows that you care so much that you want to do better.
Yeah.
And like that's the only way like in loss kind of sometimes is to show that like emotion, I feel like.
You know what I hate off of that? I hate the copium of like you lose and people are like, well, it doesn't really matter. It's earlier in the year. Like we're still making good progress. Let's not get frustrated. Cherry said that like the other day. I was like, no, like I want people to be frustrated. I want people to be annoyed. I want people to like be upset at each other if you think there's stuff that we can all improve on. Like everyone should think that like you have each other's back. You're just trying to win. I love that. I also think it was something, oh my gosh, dude, my brain's just overloaded. It was something you had said before that about the, what were you saying just before that? It was the admin thing Kabam had said.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
How he'd be biased or like judge like different teams and players.
Yeah, oh, that's what I was going to say. It's not to stereotype you guys, but I was laughing so hard because Sam Genetics was like going through his clips on Twitch, and there was one where he was raging so hard and he was like, yep, that's a normal angry British man right there. And I actually kind of think Harry's that same way where like if I listen to you guys, just like the humor is so much more depressing than like I feel like a North American.
It's very deadpan, sarcastic, and sometimes like no one can be like, so everyone's so like deadpan that no one's even laughing at the what could be a humorous moment, you know.
Yeah, because I feel like if I fake rage or if I say something troll, I feel like my tone is like so different. But I don't know, just like I remember you would always crack us up because it's not like people make fun of like the accent stuff. Like Max would always imitate like you and Kenny.
Loved it.
He did love it. He did love it so much. But it was like the way Last says stuff cracks me up because like instead of saying like, oh, I'm pretty strong here, he'll say like, I'm okay strong, I'm okay weak, like I'm okay like good to fight or something like that. And then Vote was like, what the hell does okay good mean? It was just so funny to me. And Last was like, wait, what's wrong with that? It like completely broke character almost. I loved it so much, man. Just hearing that type of stuff, I would just love. Like I've always wanted to know. Like it's so hard. I wish I could speak Spanish because I would love to hear what like original Sanguine comms were like. Because I don't know if you guys remember those clips. Like they just used to go crazy. They were just like they were just yelling. They were so hyped. Like how do they communicate?
Dude, when they played against you guys, season 8, they like stood up and they were like pointing across.
What's so funny is we've had two players from that team on our team, and neither of them are like Royd and Jock don't really pop off. They're just chilling.
Dude, but in those clips, like the season 7 ones, Royd is going crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
It must have been a thing that they like boosted each other up, you know.
Yeah, I don't know how people calm like that. It's so insane to me. I love that. But I'd love to hear that type of stuff in scrims, like, because Fred was such a good player with that too. Like Fred, I think one of the things that was so underrated about Fred for all of his career was how much like energy he gave to his team environments, because he was always he just wanted to play, he wanted to win, he was just excited. Like regular season sets last year, they won, he'd get up, he was like pumped, like he would start going crazy. Like I feel like that's so good for a team. Like someone needs to bring energy.
Even the stories I've heard from like Biggie and Harry about like teaming with Fred, like that guy would go like 17-0 in scrims, like on the regular.
Yeah.
And like there'd be scrim sessions where he'd die like twice and get like 60 kills. And it's like, what is wrong with this guy? Like imagine how amazing that would feel. Just every scrim session, your jungler's just destroying everyone, like dismantling different teams by himself. And it's like that must be like a fun environment. Like
I'm gonna butcher this, but Darda showed me some of their old clips. One of the reasons I think recording stuff is so funny, like having all the old like memories, the clips. I gotta get him to release this. It is probably the single funniest clip I've ever heard in my life, and I'm gonna do such a bad job impersonating it because it was the tone of Fred's voice. There's a scrim, and it's a scrim, they end, they win the game, and Fred's like, all right, boys, great game. It's 2:00. You're not going to be hearing another word out of me. Have a great day. And he just instantly closes his client and gets off. It was so funny. Like, I wish it was like a sub sound or something. It was just so good. Like the way he said it, I just loved it so much, because everyone's just laughing afterwards. And it just keeps everything lighthearted, because it feels so bad. Like if you're slumping and you realize you're slumping and then you're losing every game, everyone gets deflated more and more and more. And to me, like, the reason I love this job so much is I also just have fun with it. Like, it's just fun to scrim and learn and play with everybody. I really love it.
At the end of the day, it's supposed to be fun, I feel like. And if it's not fun, then what's the point? That's how I feel like, at least.
Do you guys ever think like that? Like in the times where you have considered do you want to keep playing? Is that ever a consideration of oh, when it's not fun for me anymore, I know that's when I'm done, that type of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think I completely relate to Aror about when he said if I feel like I'm not getting better, then that's it. I'm done with the game, because it's you
mean long term, or even within a little bit?
No, I mean just generally develop. You don't have to be getting better than I don't have to be improving at the same rate as the other players or whatever. I just need to know in my own heart that I am improving as a player. And I've got ways to go or steps to make. And it's for me, that's important. But the fun thing's so weird, because it's I've thought a lot about this, and I feel even if Smite, I mean, as long as I'm enjoying the game for what it is, I don't care if scrims can go bad sometimes, or match days can go bad sometimes. I'm not going to have fun just getting shit on for 30 minutes straight. It's fine.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to have fun that moment, but I'll have fun in the wins. I'll have fun, before that, adrenaline, before an important set or whatever, or in some important tournament. As long as that's fun, then I think it stays the dream job, right?
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, for me, every time I've had moments from I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. I'll go play a ranked game. I'm dude, this game is fun.
Yeah.
That's it. If I can't do that, if I queue a Smite game, even if it's an arena, and I'm this, I still like this game a lot. I love playing it. I always enjoy, for the most part, when I play Smite. Even if scrims are going bad, if SPL is going bad, if I can log in and have a good time just playing myself in a ranked game, arena, whatever it is, then I know that I could still do it. But when that time comes where I log in, I'm dang, this sucks, then I don't know if I could do it anymore after that as well. The improving thing, for me, I have to feel like I'm improving, and I also have to enjoy it, and I still do. And I feel there isn't, we're in the group of, we've been around a while. There's a lot of players that we've seen in
come and go and stuff, yeah.
From the start, come and go, and for whatever reason it is, I feel a lot of these players that I see that happen to, it's just because they don't have as much fun as they used to in the game.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what coaches and psychologists always try to instill is the best way to be confident and be the best is just make sure you're having fun first. Yeah. And then And then if you're like smiling while playing, it's like, well, it's really hard to not have a good time and like or enjoy getting better.
That's why I love like every team environment I've been in. Ever since like season 4, maybe, I think it was like right after ALG, because with ALG, I think Cyclone and I, we hated losing so much that we would like, our attitude would drag down, and if our attitudes dragged down, like everybody's did, and it just made the environment no fun. Ever since that point on, I was like, I'm just gonna make every team fun, and like learning how to make everybody laugh is so different. Like for whatever reason, this team, like when I record my like YouTube VODs, I'll like title it something different. So I'll have like the date, the team we're playing, and then a title. And then we like lost our first couple sets in a row, and I was like, I'm trying to improve. Like that was my that was my name in Discord, was trying to improve. And Darez was like, when is that gonna happen? And I would just keep doing it every day. It's like trying to improve, or it was like I'm gonna like come with passion, you know, something like that, like just something random. But it's just like a new like daily goal or a weekly goal every time, and I feel like it just lets people like live in the moment and not worry about like results or stress as much, and just like really have fun and just like care about getting better. And now whenever I say like, yeah guys, I want to try to improve at this, they just start laughing because like it's a cursed phrase now.
I guess it's cool to, you know,
then I say that
make fun of, you know.
Yeah guys, just laugh at me for trying to better myself, I suppose.
Simply get passionate.
Yeah, I don't really have anything else. We've been going forever. I don't know if you guys have stuff, but yeah.
One last thing I wanted to ask you, growing up, did you like have anybody that you played games with, either like a sibling or like friends? Like how'd you get into like playing stuff?
It was kind of sad because I didn't, the main person I'd play with was my brother James, my older brother, and I played, you know, Call of Duty growing up, but like he played Smite too, and like at first I just like I kind of piggybacked off him playing Smite. It was like a YouTuber called Steve Schwent that I started playing because of, but like I literally stacked shelves at a supermarket to like make enough money to get a PC so I could play Smite, because on Xbox, you know, you can play Smite back then. And then like it was with my brother that we played, and we tried to get other people in, like kind of from our Call of Duty friends group, but it was just him mostly. And his name was originally General Twig, and I was Captain Twig.
I love that.
And he'd play little weekly tournaments too, but we never like wanted. He didn't have that competitive streak that you need to like be like a pro player. So, but like that's where we differed. But yeah, it was with him.
Nice.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I wanted to give a shout out. We do a weekly, we're trying to do this thing every week where we do a weekly community shout out. And this week, there's a league that you can play called AGL, and signups for season 11 close on Friday. So that's 2 days from now. There's more than 200,000 gems on the line between all different divisions and conferences, and the league is open to all skill levels. So if you're like a bronze player, or if you've never even played Conquest before, and like you're a new Conquest player, I think they have leagues for like everything that imaginable. You can check them out on the ALG Discord, discord.gg /ALG Smite, or on Twitter at ALG Smite _. But yeah, they're really cool. I feel like even if you're not like the most competitive person and you want to get into playing Smite, like just in like a team environment, I guess, and maybe it'd be a good place to start. And I think they do really cool things for the community, and it gives a lot of people a place to compete, even if they're not the greatest. So
yeah, weekly tournaments or any leagues like that, they're just so much fun. Just finding, and also just meeting new people that, you know, we talk about having people that you can share like something you're passionate about, whether that's a professional level or not. It just feels good to just have fun like playing a game and nerding out over it like that.
Yeah, like even going to play basketball, like I remember me and my friends would always go play pickup with people, and we were never that good, and it'd be funny when we would run into some people that were really good, and we're like, okay, yeah, we shouldn't be here. But like it's always fun to just like put yourself in that spot sometimes. So if you're interested in like playing Smite 5v5, definitely check AGL out.
Yeah, thanks again, Ben, for coming on such short notice as well. Yeah, it was awesome to have you. Yeah, that's pretty much it for us. You can find us next week, 3:30 p.m. Eastern, every single week.
Travelers Proc, baby.
Yeah, Travelers Proc on twitch.tv/AurorTheChunk. The VOD will be available the following day, every Thursday, on my YouTube at youtube.com/@PBM Smite, and we're on Spotify on Inside the SPL. But yeah, thanks everybody for watching. Thanks, Ben, again. Actually, before that, I'm such a rude co-host. Follow all of Twig stuff. It's twitter.com. It's CaptainTwig, right?
Yep.
Twitter, CaptainTwig. Captain Twiggy.
Yeah,
actually.
Captain Twiggy on
Twitch. Yeah. Oh, did I say
Captain-
Twitter again?
Yeah.
Captain Twiggy should be in my Twitch title too, so you can just click on his name and it'll bring you to his channel if you want to follow that.
Sweet.
Perfect. And then also for all of you've mostly been doing Duel, but you've also had some Conquest games, right?
Yeah, Bronze to Grandmaster, baby.
Yeah, if you love great YouTube titles like I do myself personally, definitely
Insane cooks.
go check out Ben's YouTube channel. I have actually been watching like almost all of them, and guys, you will not believe an Erlang build that has everything in it. But yeah, definitely go follow him on everything. He puts out great stuff.
Is there
But yeah.
anything else you have coming up? Just streams and
I'm
whatever?
happy. Just hopefully overcoming the slump, this weekend.
Yeah. Who do you guys play each other, right?
Nope.
No, we play Ravens Hounds. So it's
Oh,
a big
both of you
league.
play Raven
You
Sounds.
both
And we're-
Yep.
We're 5-3. You guys are 5-3.
4-4.
Oh, you're 4
I think it's everyone else 4 and
Oh,
4.
Ravens is 5-3.
Ravens
And Hounds are 4-4.
4-4.
Oh my god.
We're in the Wild West over here.
So not even a win necessarily. Yeah, it's
You guys know the meme where it's like the clown with all the soldiers behind the wall?
Scott tweeted that. Yeah.
Yeah, our group is like 1 soldier and 3 clowns. It's just 3 clowns behind the wall.
I like that.
Oh god, yeah, it's a good time. Your guys' group is crazy. I'm pretty excited to see how this weekend shakes out. And then, I love tournament time. I just want to play best of 5s. Best of 5 Smite is just my favorite time in the world. I love it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you next time. Hopefully, if we don't see you, you've messed up. Surely. Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
One if I'm trolling from Professor BM. You can hear the audience. I wonder if there's a